All right, folks, it's time for another edition of Mullings Music and the Memories. Definitely have some great things going on here in the community. And of course, a lot of folks are going to be paying attention to sports and the things along that line. We're going to see many of our guests come in. Just had a great conversation on coaching on the radio show with Marc Lee. And of course, folks are paying attention to a number of news items that are going on as well. Definitely people are paying attention to the vaccine and its rollout, and definitely paying attention to a number of other things that are happening in society as well. So that's some of the things that are going on. Folks are paying attention to the vaccine, and of course, folks are definitely paying attention to things that are going on around the border, around Mexico, and things along that line. And of course, definitely paying attention to the stimulus package, and hopefully folks are getting those stimulus packages into their pockets. I know a lot of folks are definitely concerned about their finances and all of that. Yours truly is one of them. I'm definitely needing to have some finances of my own improved, and I know that a lot of other folks are feeling that way also. So definitely keeping things rolling along, and definitely glad to be part of the international broadcast media and all of the great programming that they have here on a regular basis. So glad to see that we've got some great programming coming our way. Last week we took off for Easter Monday, and well, actually, we took off not Easter Monday, but we took off for some other things that were going on and all of that. But definitely folks are paying attention to a number of things that are going on. It is Easter Monday. That's what I was trying to say. It's Easter Monday now, and actually we took off from our audio podcast. So we're only doing 2 today. We're not doing our usual 3. So we're only doing 2. But we are doing Mullings Music and Memories. And, of course, we're doing the radio show right here on International Broadcast Media. So definitely glad to have many of you involved in the things that we've got going on, and looking forward to having more of you involved as we continue bringing you all kinds of great programming and all of that. We'll bring you some news items and some thoughts about some news items in a minute, but we're also going to let you check out some other things that are going on in our community as well. So definitely right now I'm getting ready to bring up some announcements that you may be interested in, and then we'll come back with our special guest that we did a pre-interview of. So that's right, we did a pre-interview for part of this particular edition of Mullings Music and Memories. But right now I'm going to bring up some other things that are going on in society and some other things that you may be interested in, including some other ads and all of that. So I'm going to bring that up in just a matter of a minute or so. Hope that y'all will enjoy some of these things that are going on in our neighborhood and all of that. As a matter of fact, I think we're going to let you check out some of the very important things that are happening going on, including some poetry. So let's check out this little bit of poetry right here.
The difference between thinking and doing and living in the 21st century. They teach us about being a real quarterback-oriented games. We don't have to just use video games and live in the shadows of good things because of them. We grow up with agility far larger and bigger than we are tall. Parents are the champions and have to be our first life coaches and know-it-alls. Who knows how this came to be? Coaches will ask you if you know your right foot from your left, if you know yourself, if you act knowingly good or bad, if you can move and negotiate a field with style and form, if you can tackle or throw a pass, or if your last name is that of a clown, if you can let someone know on the team that you are in trouble before you cause yourself or someone else trouble. If you are ready to learn teamwork or aware that you started out today with your pants down or your sportsmanship was left on the kitchen table, if you know the social studies, the alphabets, science, music, characters, and the stats and the numbers of a great student player eligible to stay on the team, and if you know the poise of great athletic champions and their scientific attitudes that are historical or music to us now, if you have the swag of the game, the discipline, the performance, and artistic form down pat. And if you have the style of gymnastics that the sport has with life, if you have the work ethic and determination to make it all seem easy and not a game at all, if you have the knowledge of all the above, or you don't know things like this even make the difference. I think that when it comes to the importance of parents and their field and self-knowledge, wisdom, virtues, and courage, their teachings, love, respect, care that they illustrate on the field and in the grind of life with their actions and their ideas, experiences, muscle, and strategic magic and skills wrapped around us with their priceless love. For their verbs to be that make us winners in this hard and fast third century that without them, kids and adults, athletes could hardly see or do anything at all. Parents teach us the difference between playing video games and playing on the field. Parents teach us how to be champions. A huge hug should go to parents, coaches, and parent-like community people who have love on the field for you and who are champions for your life, both in and out the games.
Yes, a very powerful statement made by none other than one of those great poets that Calvin Anderson knows and all of that. So definitely some amazing conversation about leadership. And that's actually what we were talking about on the show, the radio show with Marc Lee, leadership and coaching and all of that. So that was some great conversation that actually fit in with some of the other conversations we've had as well. So definitely a lot of folks have been paying attention to a number of great things happening in our world. And that was just some of the things that we can look forward to in terms of catching up with news and all of that. And like I said, I will be coming back with some more news items in a little bit. But right now, let's check out about one of my friends and her book that she's got and a little bit about that particular book.
Hello, my name is Natural Breeden, and I'm introducing a new author and her publication. Dr. Veronica Hardy is an inspirational speaker, author, and educator. Through her writing and public speaking, she uses the power of story to reveal and confront challenges experienced by the readers and listeners. And this is showcased through her book, A Letter to My Sisters, Reflecting on God's Promises. Dr. Hardy, what influenced the title of your book?
I can say, now I did change the title a few times. It went from, I think I started with calling it Tamar's View, to capture more from her perspective. Mm-hmm. Then I switched it to Everybody Has Their Stuff. You know, we all carry something. Yes. And then finally I decided to pray. You know, God, what do you really want people to receive or know from this book? Mm-hmm. And so that's when A Letter to My Sisters, Reflecting on God's Promises, really came to me, because I felt it was really fitting that I was writing something for other women to read from my heart to theirs.
Oh,
thank you.
Now, Dr. Hardy, why did you choose the story about Tamar as the basis of the book?
I feel like oftentimes we don't talk much about the women in the Bible who have gone through difficulties, mm-hmm. such as her. She was raped or sexually assaulted by her half-brother. Okay, and I just thought that was an important story to be able to bring out. And I thought it was important to kind of bring out her story, how she responded to it, so we could also look at how we respond to it as well.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Hardy, how does the story of Tamar serve as an example for you?
I would say strength, for one. It seems like she didn't hide it at all. And I think sometimes if someone were to ask us, we want to cover it. We don't want to share it. Why? Mm-hmm. Because we're carrying the shame, or we feel like we're guilty that we caused the situation to happen to us. Mm-hmm. So I was glad she was able to share it with her brother, acknowledge it, and then he said to her, don't take it to heart. And that message spoke to me that we don't have to carry what someone else did to us. We don't have to make that become part of our identity, but for us to remember who we are, because she was a princess. Okay? And that's not taken away because of what someone else did to her. And I just wanted us as women to remember who we are in God's eyes.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Hey, it's Fran Harris, founder of Electra Sports Beverages. So excited that you are joining me right now for this live broadcast where I am finally launching my sports beverage. Now, Electra is a better for you functional beverage company that other things will come after in a few years. But right now we are launching one of the best, better for you, in fact, best for you sports drinks on the planet. Now, a lot of people will say, why would you start a beverage company when you got other competitors, huge competitors in the marketplace in this space? Well, it's a $23 billion industry. Sports drinks, $23 billion opportunity. That means there's room to play. The reality is, if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. So I'm very proud of Electra. Very proud of what Electra stands for. I'm very proud of this nutritional panel back here because we didn't miss a beat. We knew that consumers were looking for better taste, higher functionality, lower sugar, fewer calories. We knew that. And I am so proud of what we have put in this bottle. It's something that you can give your kids. It's something that you can drink yourself, whether you're an elite athlete or an everyday hustler. We put some great stuff in this bottle, and I want to invite you to join me on this journey for this big online launch party. There's a lot of room. There's a lot of room to play. I'm going to get in where I fit in. I'm going to find my niche and make sure that we develop and produce products that are absolutely amazing that our customers want. So I wanted to introduce you to Electra here. So we got 3 flavors. You've got Passion Punch, you got Oh Yeah Orange, and you got Liddy Lemonade. And so whatever your pleasure is, if you like the punch taste, if you like the orange taste, if you like the Liddy Lemonade, then you can have your pleasure, all right? But I want you to get in on this because we're doing something special with Electra right now. We're launching it first time out of the gate. That means that you can get it right now at a very special price if you participate in my Indiegogo campaign. Now let's talk about what an Indiegogo campaign is. This is not a fundraiser. This is an opportunity to generate some buzz and some fun around the launch of a brand new product. And you get the opportunity to get things like t-shirts, come to some private events. It's an opportunity for you to be a part of something bigger than all of us, right? Imagine if you had been there when that other sports drink had started 50 years ago. Imagine what it would have felt like to be a part of what you knew was going to be history. That's what I'm offering you the opportunity to do right now, is to be a part of Electra's launch to the public. Now, Electra will be available online, so you'll be able to go to our website and our store and buy Electra, but you won't be able to get access to some of the prizes that you're going to get access to by participating in this campaign. And there are many, many levels that you can get involved in. You can get involved at a very low level where you just want to be a supporter. You can get involved at a different level where you get a t-shirt and a cap. You can get involved in a different level where you can come to a VIP event with me, hang out with me and my team. Either way, get in where you fit in and just become a part of this historic launch. There should be a button on this page right now. All you need to do, click that button, and then you can learn all about the different ways that you can be involved in this particular launch campaign. All right, click the button right now. I appreciate your support so much, and I will see you on the other side.
Producers, directors, I met designers, and then everybody said, oh, this is my 6th year coming, and oh, this is my 4th year coming.
Shout out to New York. We're in New York in like 7 hours.
Oh my gosh, yes, we have a 6:58 flight, so.
We gotta go home. We gotta go.
We gotta go.
Let me tell you something. Every single person that's come through the store has spoke so highly of you, and what a great event this is. Yes.
I'm representing DJ Darryl, who is a platinum producer. He did the hit track for Tupac Shakur, Keep Your Head Up, Snoop Dogg, Keisha Cole.
The Black Business Expo is changing my life. This year, they are giving away laptops and even $5,000 in cash to students just like me. I'm Alexis, and I want to go to college to fulfill my dream of becoming an entrepreneur. Help the Black Business Expo going to www.blackbusinessexpousa.com and also becoming a vendor, a sponsor, or donating.
All right, folks, that was some of the advertisement that we had earlier in terms of some other things that are going on in the community and everything. Right now, we're going to go to our pre-recorded interview that we did with Jenny Gold as well as with Lynn, and it was a great and amazing interview. I was glad to have both of them as a guest on and definitely sharing their wisdom and all of that. So we're going to bring that up, and then y'all can check out this amazing interview that was done just a matter of a few days ago. So definitely enjoyed that interview, enjoyed having them on as my guest of honor, and definitely look forward to continuing our friendship and our learning about each other and all of that. So definitely glad to have that going on and looking forward to more great conversations with them in the very near future. Like I was telling Jenny and Lynn, if the robot is supposed to represent me, it should have at least a beard and in some cases the glasses that I sometimes have on as well. But it didn't have either one of those, so I'm not sure how that's supposed to represent me and all of that. But looking forward to having a great conversation with Lynn as well as Jenny Gold and just talking about life in general and all of that. This is actually somewhat of a pre-recorded interview. And actually on the outside, it's a lovely day. I actually just was out there a minute ago checking out the sun, checking out the great weather, even though there was a frost warning earlier in the day and everything. And we're in the middle of early April and we're talking frost warning. I don't know if I can get with this whole frost kind of situation in this early in the time and all of that, because I'm not used to being all that frosty in April and everything. But I do remember a time that we actually had a snowstorm even in April. And Lynn may remember that as well, since Lynn is definitely got some ties to the North Carolina area as well, being over there in Morrisville, a lovely bedroom community here in North Carolina. So I want to bring Lynn Delgado on. And of course, I'll be bringing Jenny on as well, but definitely want to share a lot of things that are going on in our world and just share a lot with y'all. So I know a lot of folks have also been paying attention to the NCAA games. I haven't even paid attention to who won the earlier game. I think that they had the earlier game already, or maybe it's going on right now. And then this evening will be the second game. And then we'll have a championship on Monday the 5th. But right now, let's see what Lynn's up to and what she's got going on in Morrisville. And of course, right here in North Carolina, a lot of us are looking at the fact that a whole coach has disappeared. There was a legendary coach, so Roy Williams, that stepped down and said that he's going to stop coaching at UNC. And a lot of folks are speculating as to who the new coach will be. Maybe it'll be Hubert Davis. Maybe it'll be Wes Miller over at UNCG. But who knows who that person might be. Hey, maybe they can get Lynn to be the coach. She's already a business coach, and she can coach the basketball team. So maybe we'll have Lynn coach the basketball team as well. I think she could do a great job and probably give them some amazing advice and all of that. So, Lynn, I know I had the pleasure of talking to you earlier, and you were sharing a little bit about your story, which totally fascinated me. The fact that you had actually been an avid runner, an avid bicyclist, and then you had this tragedy in your life, but you didn't let that stop you from still doing great work, still doing motivation and things along those lines. So if you could share with our audience that doesn't know that story that I know about you, a little bit about what had gone on and how you had been so involved in the kind of the whole exercise world, definitely being an avid runner, an avid bicyclist, and all of that. As I had told you before, when I was living in Warrenton, which is the town that I consider my growing up town, because I was born in Durham, spent most of my life here in Durham, but some of my early years from like sixth grade through college, I was living in Warrenton, North Carolina. And I remember Mr. Lanier used to go bicycling as well, and he bicycled throughout this state of North Carolina, as well as even going state to state and all of that. And it seems to me that some of the kind of things that you were doing.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, I did play hoops too in high school. Point guard. I was pretty good. And we got Houston Baylor at 5:14 and UCLA and the Zags at 8:34. So there's your sports update.
Okay.
Because when you said that, I thought I've not been paying attention and I want to watch tonight. So yeah. Hey, if it involved physical activity, I was all in, you know? And so, yeah, when I was cycling, I was doing 350 a week, maybe minimum 350 a week. I did the California coast on my bike back in the day. And when I wasn't cycling, my husband was a professional runner. So when I met him, I couldn't get him on the bike. So I started running. And then I was like, oh, I can run 3 miles. And if I can run 3 miles, I can run 5. If I can run 5, I can run 8. And if I can run 8, I can probably run 10. And if I can run 10, I can probably run 13. And then, we moved to San Francisco where you can't run without hills. And I hated it at first, but then I was like, ooh, I want more hills. I want more hills. I want more hills. So I just was constantly like trying to outdo myself. And then I decided I wanted to teach yoga and I wanted to teach, exercise on the ball and it just whatever. Now I was still working, I still had a professional job that I was working, 100 hours a week. So how I got all this done, I don't know. And I was definitely over the top. Like it wasn't healthy, the amount of working out I was doing. But,
wow.
Yeah. And then
what do you think is some of the things that you learned from running and from bicycling that even after, and we'll get to that in a little bit as well, but even after your injury, you brought this kind of knowledge to yourself and everything. But what are some of the things that you remember from your running days and your definitely bicycling days? I know one thing that it sounds like you discovered is the type of personality that you had back then and everything as opposed to what you might have now. But I was wondering what some of the life lessons that you learned from running and bicycling.
Yeah, well, so I was definitely an A+++, and anyway, but, it's all, when you're doing distance anything, it's all mind game, and you got to get in that zone because that's why a lot of people who might be really good runners, they have a hard time going 10 miles because they get bored or it's, and it's complete mental game. You got to stay on target and you got to be focused. So that has really served me well. And I also learned that, I never had in my mind that I can't do it. Mm-hmm. It never, like people would say to me, why are you going to California to ride the coast? I'm like, God, aren't you scared? Isn't that crazy? I'm like, no, it sounds like fun. Like, so, but yeah, so, and now I would never, now I can't ride a bike anymore. I mean, I can like your regular go around town bike, but like not a road bike because my vestibular system's off, but, and I don't run anymore. I walk, but, I think that focused mind really helped me in my healing.
Wow. Yeah. So that probably helped you in the healing. Could you tell a little bit to our audience about the whole devastating injury? And then I definitely want to bring Jenny in to join in our conversation and everything. But a lot of folks that are watching here on the international broadcast media didn't have the privilege of talking to you before and everything. So they don't understand a lot of what you went through. Like I said, you were definitely doing a lot of that intensive running and bicycling, but then you had this devastating injury. So I'd love you to share a little bit about what that devastating injury was and your road to recovery.
Yeah, I think so. So July 3rd, 2014, I had just finished like a 8-mile run, whatever it was. And for the first time, and I can't remember how many years, I had like 3 days ahead of me where I had nothing to do, 3.5 days. And so I was really excited about it. And I said, you know what, before I'm going to take my dog to the park, I'm just going to go do some weights at the little gym in the community where I lived. And so I went over to the lat pull down machine, and that's for, if your viewers don't know what that is, it's, sit on a bench. There's a bar overhead, a metal bar, and then it's like a pulley system, and you load the weight over there. And when you pull the bar down, the weight goes up. So I had about 80 pounds loaded, pretty significant amount for someone like me. So, I started pulling, and I don't remember which one, but on one of the pull downs, that whole system snapped, and the bar came in crashing into my head with a force of 80 pounds. So it tilted, it twisted and rotated my axis, which didn't get corrected until this past year. Yeah. I had bad traumatic brain injury. And then if you can imagine like this pencil being your spine, and then the whack of 80 pounds, it's got to get absorbed somewhere. Right. So it did partially my neck, but it created like a hyper shifting in my low back. And then that hyper shifting created the formation of a cyst on my spinal cord, which would have all sorts of pain implications. So, I had every like trait or symptom in the book. I had slurred speech, stammered speech. I still to this day will stutter sometimes. Hope just did it. Hopefully not on this talk. Memory was shot. I had pain all along the right side of my body at first, and then that would increase to a lot of neck pain, a lot of low back pain, a lot of electrocution like pain, mostly into the left calf, but sometimes throughout my whole body. I didn't remember places, people, names, where I lived. I did know my dog, that was for sure. I was a fall risk for many, 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 many months. When they finally sent me back to my job 6 months later, I forgot how to do it. So that was a whole navigating that. It was crazy in itself, but required surgery. That wasn't until 2016 because it took 18 months to figure out where this electrocution like pain was coming from. So that was the horrible injury, and I'm fortunate that and I was alone here, like I told you. I didn't know a soul, so it was going to be up to me. Can you imagine seeing 30 plus specialists and all the, I don't know how I did it, but I did learn how to ask for help. And, but because I was alone, I had to rely solely on the communication system between my brain and body and then respond accordingly. And that's how my healing journey began. And I just continued to follow these little breadcrumbs and intuitively developed these strategies for myself that 3 years later I would learn were based in neuroscience. I had no idea. I was just following my body's, response. So it was a really beautiful, not always beautiful because the pain got to me. It was pretty bad. But a really incredible healing story that really propelled me in this different direction and altered me, spiritually, big time, altered me cognitively, structurally, but most of all spiritually, to the point where when I did learn there's neuroscience, I had to leave corporate and say, I'm going to help people. I'm totally going to help people. This is a gift. That sounds odd, but this was a gift, and I'm going to utilize it to help people, improve their lives.
No, definitely. And you're definitely doing a great job of that and everything. One of the things that oftentimes people will think about is the fact that there's that cliche that we oftentimes hear about. And it sounds to me like you're almost a perfect example of that. And that cliche is that don't put off today what you can do. Don't put off tomorrow what you can do today, because tomorrow isn't promised to us, and everything along those lines. And it sounds to me that in a lot of ways, your life is very much an example of that and everything. And I was wondering if you could even speak to that, because I do think that a lot of times we as just individuals in general get into that procrastination mode. And I know when I talked to you before, we were talking about how people can procrastinate going for jobs, procrastinate going for relationships, procrastinate going for a number of things, because we feel that we can do it on, the day tomorrow, we can do it the day after, we can do it next week and all of that. But as a good friend of mine, Ray Pascal, puts it, we all know our birthdays, or at least hopefully most of us know our birthdays and everything, but none of us know our end dates, or as he calls it, our expiration dates and all of that. So I just wondered if you could speak to that, and then in a little bit, I'll bring Jenny in, like I said, as well. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about that concept of it definitely kind of being the way we should live our lives, which is to live it to the fullest as much as possible.
Yeah. And, when we do procrastinate, we just had a thought in our head that we got to check in and challenge that thought when that happens. If you just pushed a bunch of paper aside and walked away, right in that moment, stop and go, wait a minute. What thought just went through my head that made me say, was it, I'll do it tomorrow, or I don't have time right now, or it's too much for me? And then figure out what to do with that thinking and what actions then to take. But yeah, I mean, your life can change in a dime. And I like to say, we have, who created this birthday? Our cells are renewing every single moment, every single day. So really, every day is my birthday. And I like to look at it like that. And every day is a gift. Every day is a gift. And so that definitely opened my eyes to that. But, because of all these strategies that I was employing, I actually became more engaged in life. And I don't know. I mean, it was almost like, carpe diem just kind of kicked in. And it was fun. I got to this place of just like bliss. And I remember the first day where it just washed over me, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is anxiety producing, because it felt like this is how I'm supposed to feel. It felt really good. But it was so not a familiar feeling. And so what I did was I had to pull over on the side of the road and just sit with it and try to milk it and stay with that feeling as long as possible, so that if I wanted to bring it up on recall, I wanted to create that memory in my body. And so, but yeah, this whole recovery, not only did I heal my mind and body, but it made me far more productive at work, to the point where my boss called me one day and said, what are you doing? I want to know. I've been watching you, and you're just really happy, and you're really productive, and you're really steady. I've been watching for the last few months. I want to know what you're doing. I knew I had something.
No, it's interesting you say that, because one of the things that I'm curious about, like I said, I'm definitely going to hear from others as well, definitely Jenny and everything. But I'm curious as to, you're talking about productivity and how you went through productivity. And we've actually, even in this COVID period, heard a lot of people saying that productivity has been on an uptick and everything, or on a rise, because people are finding that they need to be productive, even though they're working from home. But now we're seeing that corporations, like I just saw an announcement yesterday, the big corporations are calling people back into their workforces. I think part of that is because they want to keep an eye on them and do a little bit of what people would consider micromanaging and all of that. But it seems to me that from what I'm hearing, a lot of people are actually doing better in the hybrid field and in the remote field and all of that. But I was just wondering your thoughts. And then, like I said, I am going to bring Jenny in as well. But I would love to know your thoughts as to whether you feel that this might be a mistake that the corporations are making, pulling them back into the workforce, particularly as soon as some of them are doing. I know that definitely I've heard that Google is, and I think I've heard Microsoft and a couple of other big corporations.
I mean, well, let's not forget, those corporations are paying for real estate, whether they own it or lease it. So they might as well use it. And maybe they're not pulling the full workforce in. Maybe they're going to keep social distancing or what have you. A lot of these companies also do have wellness programs. And maybe that participation has dropped off. People need that more than ever now, because, people are sitting at home in maybe a not ergonomically fit environment. Chiropractors are busier than they've ever been, because the posture, people are just working at their kitchen table. I know people that say they work out of their bed or they sit on the couch. Is the worst thing you could do. I've got an ergonomically fit chair here. But a lot of people do not. And so, so I don't know, there might be a variety of reasons why businesses want to bring people back in. But I've been working remotely since 95. And I find I'm far more productive because, you don't have the water cooler talk. You don't have people coming into your office for no reason at all, which is nice to chit and chat, but you get more done if you are that kind of focused individual. Now, I know some people who feel paralyzed by fear and they're not getting anything done because they're watching too much mainstream media and their fear is overtaking them. And so when you get to that point when you feel paralyzed by fear, you're not going to get anything done. But I think a lot of employers have realized that, oh my gosh, I think they were nervous at first. And now they're like, wow, these people are really adults and can do their job no matter where they are. Yeah.
I definitely agree with
a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely agree with you. I was going to bring in Miss Jenny as well. So, Jenny, glad that you're able to join us and everything. That's my backdrop of the Carolina Theater sitting there in the backdrop as well and everything. But, Jenny, share a little bit about your story as well, because I know that, like Lynn, you've gone through some hardships and all of that, but definitely you're not letting that stop you either. You're definitely one of those people that I think of being as a positive person, and I know that we're all friends with Brian, and definitely that's kind of what I always think of when I think of positive people is Brian and Tim and all of the kind of things that they do regularly on Saturdays and Wednesdays. But I was just wondering if you could share a little bit about your journey as well.
Well, thank you. So, Lynn, you just did a great job, and I'm going to say this because I think you might need this. Do you like some bacon? Then I have a joke about the
bacon. There's a story behind that. I'll tell it later.
All right.
So, but Mark, you can tell me if you like bacon too.
All right, cool.
Okay, so sorry about that. I just had to say that because you did a great job, Lynn. I know that wasn't easy for you to share parts of that. So anyway, going back to why Mark has me on here today, he actually saw me on Brian's show last Saturday morning, and he's like, "Jenny, I want to interview you," and I'm like, "Okay." So, I'm very honored though that you asked me to be on your show. Yeah. So I can kind of go back to the beginning because I'm not as physically active. I never have been as someone like Lynn. I don't know what your story is, Mark, but I started dancing in ballet and tap when I was 4 years old. Wow. And we moved to Michigan when I was 6 years old. And I'm like, I'm going to become a skier. My parents were like, okay. I'm like, but I want to be a modern dancer too. And I still want to be in ballet and tap and jazz. Like, oh, jazz. I'm like, oh yeah, that too. And my mom would leave me in the community center. She said, okay, just come out to the car. I'm going to go get the car. And I signed up for other classes. She'd be like, what's this? And I'm like, oh, these are other classes I just signed up for. She's like, that means you're going to be in dance classes every day after school. And I'm like 8 years old. She's driving me everywhere, like every day after school. And I just kept going and going with that. And I'm like, and now it's ski. Like, now it's snowing, so we have to go get skis so I can ski. My parents are like, you're 10 years old. I'm like, but I just sold the vegetables from the vegetable garden, going with my little red wagon up and down the street to like make the money to get the skis and the ski poles and the ski boots and everything, right? They're like, okay, I'll get you the ski outfit. And my dad can help me count my money to see if I have enough. You know, he said, I never had enough, but he was always like, okay, that's great. Yep, you have enough. But anything, if I wanted a bike, same thing. So I've always been a go-getter too, and I can tell that Lynn has been that way her whole life also. Yes. So anyway, moving on from there, I always thought I had to have the best internships in college. Always did. And we didn't know that I had Lyme disease in high school. I probably got it at boarding school in northern Michigan on a camping trip. They've kind of tracked it back that far. We know I got it for sure in Mexico when I was a sophomore in college with my sorority sisters. Right. That was really fun too, right? It was my big trip outside the country. And I thought, oh, that's really fun. Well, not when you get bit by a tick, but we'll move on from there. So, but we didn't know why I was sick when I got back from Mexico. And my parents started telling the doctors, well, they'd call from the infirmary at boarding school and say, is she going to go to class today again? She had a fever. She didn't feel great. It was like the flu. It's probably Lyme disease. So I've probably had it even before that, because as soon as they started, when they finally figured out what was wrong with me, and the Lyme test came back positive. The doctor at Dow Chemical told my dad, I think she really has Lyme disease and all these other things. I tested positive, and they put me on all these antibiotics and things. And I actually did get better, because in college, I had to drop out of college for a year. And what happened with that is that I was like a 2.5 student. My dad's like, you've really got to get your grades up. And I'm like, President Clinton was in office. I said, oh, Bill Clinton was a 2.5 student. My dad said, that's not okay. So, but after I did the IVs for a year, the IVs, I was a 4.0 student. They're like, I was like, that would have been really nice if you could have been like that before. But, when you're that sick and you don't even remember your name, like Lynn was saying, seriously, I'd be at a fraternity party and this guy would be like, what's your name? And I'm like, Jenny, what's your last name? Because we're checking in, right? I'm like, Gold. Like, I have to think about it. And that's when they really knew I had a problem. The people I was living with, they were like, did you really go to class? Because you just left 10 minutes ago. I'm like, oh yeah, I went. I didn't go to class. Like, in my mind, I went to class. And then I'd say, hey, do you guys want a tuna fish sandwich? I'm going to make tuna. And they're like, you're going to make tuna fish again? You just had it. I'm like, no, I didn't. So yeah, that's how that started. But I always wanted to get the best internships, even though I was still in college. So here I am having 2 internships in Washington, D.C. I don't even know how I found a place in Georgetown, how I got to the Kennedy Center every day, like on the bus, because I always went. They loved me there. I actually got another internship at the Lincoln Center. My parents said, no, we're not going to pay for my Manhattan. And I'm like, oh, okay. But then I got 3 other internships, and they're just like, how can you keep doing this? In the middle of that, I was a national officer for PRSSA, Public Relations Student Society of America. Mm-hmm. And I'm traveling around the country with my little red igloo cooler with IVs in there. Now, you can't do that right now on the planes, but they looked like little baseballs, and they were filled up and stuff with syringes and all the other stuff, heparin and all the other things you had to flush your IVs out with. And I had PICC line in my arm. I'm sure that would go off when you're going through the security stuff now. And I just kept going and going and going. I even ran for, I don't know, the communications school. I was like I had been elected to, I don't know, for student council or something in Michigan State for the communications school. And the communications school called my parents and said, she's not even enrolled right now. She can't be running the communications school for the student council. I'm like, well, why not? They're like, because you're not a student right now. It's like, okay. So, I mean, that's kind of how I kept going, because I thought it was fine. I thought everything was fine, even though I didn't know my name. So that's how crazy some of these autoimmune diseases can take you out. So anyway, I ended up getting my last internship in LA, and it was for the Nintendo account. And I actually accepted it the day that the riot started, Rodney King riots. My parents were like, what are you thinking? And I'm like, I can do it. They're like, oh my God. And I did. Even though I called there to accept it, I had to leave a message. There's like Roland Harris is closed right now because of the riots. I'm like, so on the answering machine, I'm like, I'm going to take that internship, please. And I did. I mean, yeah. So I just kept going. From there, I haven't stopped. And the reason I'm telling this really long story is because I'm one of those people like Lynn that just keep going. We just keep going. We just keep going. And with my situation, though, the doctors kept saying, you better get less high power job or whatever to slow yourself down and not work these crazy hours. And I just kept doing it. And that's probably why my Lyme has gone up and down and up and down. And that's what autoimmune diseases can do if you don't take care of yourself well. So I really look up to Lynn because she is stuck with a plan. And I've tried to stick with a plan. I'm like, okay, well, I'm feeling better. Then I'm like, I'm going to go out and party with my friends. And then I don't stick with it anymore. It was hard when you lived in LA because we're like, yay, I work with the largest real estate guys in the world, or in North America. And I'm going to go to all these events, all these parties, and got a Spago for dinner, and I'm going to eat whatever I want, right, Lynn? And you just kind of, you're living
in Southern Cal too. Yep.
Yep. And then you're like, you guys are going to smoke cigars? Okay. Like, why would I smoke a cigar? Why am I going to date a guy that's getting like Cuban cigars because he knows the people that can get them? Like, seriously, right? You're going to like this one. I'm like, yeah. So, I mean, when you're living that fast life, you just kind of think it's going to all be okay. And it's not. And I'm 51. Now I'm like using a walker right now. So Lynn and I are talking about diet and things like that for me, and just making sure that I'm doing exactly what I should be doing now. And really, I mean, what I'm doing now is trying to educate people on autoimmune diseases, not just Lyme disease, but all of them. Because a lot of people, they're finding out that the Western doctors aren't telling you, like, your diabetes type A, type B is actually an autoimmune disease. Your Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disease. Your MS or your parents like Alzheimer's, it's an autoimmune disease. And there's ways that you can actually try to prevent that or heal yourself from that. And Lynn's going to talk about what she's been doing, but in the past.
Two questions that, Jenny, that popped in my head as you were talking and everything. One is, I'm going to go back to the early part of your story and everything, which is when you were telling your parents that you wanted to enroll in these dance classes, did they use that as an opportunity to teach you about economics? I don't have any kids. I've just got nephews, but I can imagine that if they were trying to like sign up for 9 or 10 courses, I'd be sitting there going like 9 or 10 times 75. That's $750. Do you have $750? So I can imagine that's what I would be doing.
When I was younger, it wasn't that much, but still, back then, just kind of like you were an ice skater, because I wanted to do that too, but I was only an ice skater for like not even a quarter like the year. I was like, and same with soccer. I'm like, I want to play soccer like everybody else. Somebody kicked me in the shins, and I was like, I walked off the field, and then my parents were like, no, get out back on the field. And I'm like, he just kicked me in the shins, and I'm a dancer. So all of a sudden, then I was a dancer. I'm like, you don't do that to dancers. So yes, they were not happy when I kept wanting to switch what I wanted to do every single season because everybody else was doing it. But they definitely having to buy all those, way back to the outfits for like ice skating or anything. It's the same type of thing, even though they're dance outfits. So I can only imagine how much. I can
only imagine that myself as well. I actually was just thinking about a story that I've shared a number of times on this platform with just as among friends of mine. Like I said, I've got the 2 nephews, and I remember that they still play, as far as I know, soccer and touch football and all of that. And I remember that they were in a game, and they were definitely having fun. They were enjoying the game. They were competing. They are now, in August, they will be 12 and 13. So they are now 11 and 12. But they were competing. This was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And they were just really into the game. They were just having a good time playing the game. And then all of a sudden, the game, started like to be toward the winding down stage and all of that. And so my nephew, I believe it was the oldest one, went into a minor temper tantrum. And we were all sitting there going like, why are you having a temper tantrum? You're winning. You're up. I think your team was up like 3-1 and everything. And I just remember, like I said, I think it was the oldest one, which is Julius. It's Julius and Langston. I don't think it was Langston. I think it was the oldest one. And he came back up to us and everything. And he's like, I'm there. Both of his parents, both of my parents, his grandparents are there. My brother, his dad is there, and a number of other family friends are there. And all of a sudden he's in the middle of tears, and he's like, I don't want to stop playing, because he was having a temper tantrum because he didn't want to give up on the game and everything. He just wanted to keep playing until, I think he would have played till 9 or 10 that evening if he had his way and everything. So we thought that was just a great moment of enjoyment with him, because he was like just in the middle of so much having fun that he didn't want the game to stop ever. And I think that that's the way even us as adults sometimes are. We don't want to stop the fun activity. We just kind of like want to get involved in it and keep it going for as much as we can and all of that. But we oftentimes don't do that. On a more serious note, and this is actually, I want to hear from both of you about this, because I've actually got dysgraphia. It's a form of dyslexia. I've talked about it on this show. I've talked about it on a couple of other shows and everything. So it means that like if we're going out on a walk on the street and you say, Lynn says, Mark, turn left, I will eventually turn left, but it might take me a little bit longer to figure out which way is left versus you, because dysgraphia and the whole connection of left to right is a little bit different than, say, the average person and all of that. So I know that I was not diagnosed well until my adult years. It sounds like some of the things that you have gone through, you weren't diagnosed well until your adult years as well. So I was just wondering, do you think in general that we're not doing a good enough job of staying on top of our health and also learning about our health, and even having the kids and the folks that are in our youth society learning about their health as well? And either one of you that want to jump on that question, I'll gladly hear what y'all got to say, because I sometimes feel that we're not doing enough good job. I remember that when I was in grade school, we had health courses. I'm not even sure they got health courses anymore in school or all of that. So I was just wondering your thoughts as to, are we even doing enough about learning about the basics of physical health and health in general?
I'll take that first, if you don't mind, Jenny. And by the way, I was told when I was 29 or 30, my mom called and she said, "I'm so glad you got over your disability." And I said, "What disability? What are you talking about?" She goes, "Your dyslexia." I'm like, and it just like a light bulb went off in my head, and I'm like, oh, is that why I always said things backwards? And I would reverse, and I had so much trouble with reading comprehension that it would take me 4 hours to do something all my friends finished in like 40 minutes. And she's like, "Yeah, we didn't want to tell you because we figured, you might feel less than," or, I'm like, well, I did. I felt plenty less than, but I didn't even know. Anyway, I wholeheartedly agree, and I will not do this, but I could talk to you for hours on end about this. This is part of the reason why I became a health coach. Now, and there's so much I want to say, but I can't. I've got to focus. I think a lot of the messaging, especially now, there's so much negative messaging in media, and we know they call it TV programming for a reason, right? It's literally programming people to think that they have no power over their own health. And we always have, we always will. But you never, very rarely do you hear, and I call it the CBNN, the Coronavirus News Network. It's all about go, go, go. And people are so afraid they're going to die, they're stop living, but the message really should be, we talked about this earlier, Jenny. One of the lessons I think we've learned, or at least I've learned in the last year, is, wow, how really sick we are as a nation, as a globe. We probably tens of millions more than are estimated right now, maybe even half of our population, have an autoimmune disorder and don't even know it. And it's so reversible. Jenny's got some complex issues, and I want to work with you. Because I do have an autoimmune program as one of my coaching programs, because I've healed myself through autoimmune. But really, it's all about, and for me, taking our power back. And understanding that there are everybody's different. It's very bio-individual, but there are things that every single person can do that will help everybody. Gut health is really, really, really important. Getting certain foods out, right? Getting the gluten out, the gliadin, which is part of the gluten. Getting the sugar out. And I'm not talking about, making a massive change right now. No, you slowly crowd in the better options until it's a process. But and a lot of people know, we know what we have to do. We just don't do it. So that's part of my health coaching, is getting to the motivation and breaking down those beliefs that are not serving you. But as well, doctors, man, it took 18 months for them to figure out that, and thank God a failed suicide attempt, to know that we need a picture of your low back. No one's taken, when that pain, but I can't even tell you how many times I was dismissed, or doctors don't have the answers, and it's become so myopic. We're so specialized, and nobody collaborates. Nutrition. Jenny, I'm sure you've experienced this. When I had my fibromyalgia, it took me years. It took me so many doctors, thousands and thousands of dollars, until I finally found the right guy who was like, "Oh yeah, you got to do this right now. We're going to change your diet. And I chose to incorporate a very strong mindfulness practice, because it's very isolating, and you've got to keep this calm. It's a very stressful thing to go through. And I did some intravenous micronutrient therapies too, but I'll zip it for now. But Yes, I would agree with that. And if anyone wants to talk to me offline, I'm so happy to talk to you. If you're ready to get your health back, you can. It's entirely possible. And you don't need a bunch of pharmaceutical drugs to do it, and or over the counter. I mean, you can get yourself off the Rolaids if you have to take those every day. You can get yourself into a better functioning state, and guess what? You're going to feel better.
I'd love to hear your thoughts as well, Jenny.
I'm sorry?
I'd love to hear your thoughts about where we are in terms of health education as well.
I totally agree with Lynn. Going back to when I was living in California, because I just moved back to Denver about 12 years ago now. I think what's happening to me here, to be honest with you guys, is that in California, I had a great support system of more naturopaths, homeopaths. One of my really, really good friends moved back to London. She was doing like all sorts of brain cognition things with me, and touch points and things like that. I mean, I have somebody that's doing that here, but I mean, she was coming over all the time, and she could get my gut back in order, everything. And I don't really have that here. Like, I don't even have the doctors that are as supportive here. The physical therapists, anything, they'd say, we're going to rewire your brain. So don't worry about your MRIs. Don't do this, even though you can't walk right now. You'll be fine in 2 months. And my, my internist, who's also a cardiologist, would be like, oh yeah, good. Yeah, go for that. And here comes the head of, physical therapy at Cedars-Sinai downstairs saying to him, oh, she'll be fine in 2 months. I would walk in with my heels, my suit, my BlackBerry, and I'd be like, all right, I got to go. I got to go show this 20,000 square foot estate. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm fine now. He's like, how can you be fine now? I'm like, because I was told that I could do it, and I'm not hearing that here. So that's why I'm globbing onto people like Lynn, because I'm thinking, wow, she can actually give me hope, even though she's on the other coast. I don't even care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where these people are. As long as somebody believes in you, that's what matters.
Yeah, definitely agree with you on that. I know one of the things that we talked about when I talked to you last time, Lynn, and everything, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. But before I get to that, I know a lot of times when people think about particularly women and the things that you ladies go through in life and everything, there's all that talk of the biological clock and how a lot of times people automatically write off things because of the biological clock. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about that, because I know sometimes people will be like, you haven't at whatever age had children, you haven't had necessarily whatever is going on in your life, and therefore you need to put that aside and not have a full life. And I think that in my mind, that's a big mistake. And I even argue that that's a mistake for men as well, because there is also a biological clock for men that exists also. But I was just wondering your thoughts about how sometimes society in general tries to put a stop or a halt on things because of the biological clock. And I'm not saying that we need to have a bunch of 50 or 60-year-olds trying to run around having children or anything. But at the same time, I do think that there is sometimes things that we automatically stop because of what society is telling us and all of that. But I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts about that as well.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, did you not have children with your husband? Because with me, the doctors told my mom, mom's like, she doesn't want to have kids anyway. And I was diagnosed finally with Lyme at 21. Yeah, I was 20. And he said to my mom and to myself, she shouldn't have kids, because what we're finding is that it may be passed through placenta when she's pregnant. We don't know yet. So, and my mom said, she doesn't want to have kids anyway. She's adopting them off the TV. Sally Struthers from Africa after church, like every Sunday. My parents would get the $5 envelope to send $5 every month. And they're like, yeah, kids that we've adopted at church, and they're all from Africa. I'm like, but that's not mine. I want my own. So I was very headstrong at that point too. But the point is, I never really wanted children. And I think with society, regardless if I had Lyme or not, I think it is kind of, well, why don't you have kids? Why don't you have kids? Why aren't you married? I've been engaged twice, and I knew they weren't going to be good marriages. So that's why I ended them. And I've been fine. I mean, right now, I wish possibly that I was married or had somebody all the time, other than my caregiver that's here every day making meals for me, because I'm not strong enough to do that right now. But definitely, I mean, I think about it, but not as obsessively like people want me to.
So I've got a couple thoughts on that. Again, it's really easy for people to live conditionally, right? Conditionally meaning we live our lives according to what other people expect from us. So, I should be going to get this job, and I used to want to be a teacher, but now I was pressured into going to the accounting and the consulting route, which benefited me greatly, but it wasn't really my dream. So I always had that little pit in my stomach, like something's missing. I always say we come here through our parents, not for our parents. Right. This is our experience on this planet that we're here to live, ours. Now, so I did not have children. Now, I had severe endometriosis as a teenager, and it was pretty bad, and they were pretty sure I would never be able to carry. And that proved true the one and only time I ever got pregnant. So, but in my mind, I was okay with that. I didn't have this burning, but then I went, so it was a different situation. Then but I was still living conditionally because I took the career that wasn't really what I wanted to do, wasn't fulfilling. But I do believe that there's all sorts of pressure because people that knew me moving through my career would always ask, why don't you have kids? Why don't you have kids? It's even like somebody told me it's a sin not to have kids. What you're doing is like, they don't know my personal story. But so it's really, and so I think especially like when you're younger, and you're supposed to be married by this time, you're supposed to have kids by this age, and life isn't linear. Right. Look at us. Our life is not at all linear.
Right. Yeah.
No doubt about that. And one of the things, that's what I was getting ready to get to, Lynn, and everything that we talked about, and I'd love to hear from both of you about this, is the fact that, the human brain is a wonderful part of our body, but we oftentimes don't wind up using it nearly as much as we could use it and all of that. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about that, because they say that, the human brain is definitely has more memory in some ways than some of these supercomputers that are out there. But we probably only use, I think they say, like 1/100th or one fraction of what we're actually capable of using and all of that. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about ways that we can be more utilizing our brain, or should we even utilize as much of our brain as we don't use, or should we just be satisfied with the way we are in society?
Well, I've been told that we only use 1% of our brain. And I actually learned about this when I was studying Kabbalah. They said there's a 99% that we're not using. There's all this stuff out there, but we only use 1%. And I think, unfortunately, that we're getting our kids into a thing where they are using more of their brains, and that's where they're tired. I mean, they're coming home, they're doing homework at in class when they're in school, when they are able to go to school, and then they're coming home and doing homework for hours, right? And then they're trying to go to football practice or cheerleading. We didn't even talk about that. I was a cheerleader, but thank goodness they weren't throwing people up in the air then. So so I didn't fall on my head. So but anyway, I think kids are so overextended. I just remember when my sister said that her 3-year-old, she'd get upset about her iPad. He'd be like, "Hey, Mama," and he would take it and fix it and give it back to her at like 3 or 4. I mean, how can a kid do that at 3 or 4?
Yeah. So
somehow they're being wired for that. And Len's giving a smirk over there. What do you think, Glenn?
Yeah.
I don't know. No, it's just coming from a different angle. Like we're so overstimulated these days.
Yeah.
We're so overstimulated. In our brains, we get like 11 million bits of information coming into our brain, but we can only process 40 to 50 bits. So that's a big disparity. And the way things are changing so rapidly, and think of all the threats out there. Normally we have like one threat at a time, like, a natural disaster, volatile stock market, government, what have you. And it's all happening so fast. It's like really hard for brains to process. But So what was your question? We only use a certain amount of our brains.
Right.
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 Yeah.
Exactly.
I think it's hard to, and the thing is, we were talking about this yesterday. You know, you can only be in one region of your brain at any given moment of any given day, and you
Yeah.
get to choose what region you want to be in. That's all our choice. So if we are stuck in a state of fear or anxiety, first of all, when we do that, your critical thinking shuts down. So if you are trying to be like in a problem-solving state at work, and you've got this thing that's creating a lot of judgment or anxiety or fear, good luck getting that project done in an efficient manner, because you've got to shift your thinking before you can attack something like that. And so if we can learn how to shift into the healthier areas of the brain where we can grow and heal and, be more solution oriented versus problem focused, the world would be a much better place. So it's possible. There are tools.
No, I definitely agree with you on that. I'd love to hear from both of you, because I know that both of you I consider to be, in one way or another, coaches. You may not consider yourself coaches, but I think that a lot of times we don't think about the importance of coaching and all of that. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about the importance of being a coach, whether that's a health coach, a business coach, or even a life coach. Because I know that, Jenny, you try to encourage people to be involved in the CBD industry and use that as a method as well. So that's a form of coaching as well. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about coaching and the importance of coaches in general.
I'd say, Lynn, why don't you go first, because you are a coach. I'd 100% say you are.
I think we're all coaches in our own way. Those of us that want to be. So you don't need the title, just like I think everybody can be a leader. Somebody once told me, you can't write about leadership on LinkedIn because you're not a leader. I'm like, we're all leaders in our communities, in our households.
Right.
But I am, so my title is Integrative Health and Integrative Nutrition Health Coach, but I add something in there. So I'm an Integrative Nutrition Health and Mindstyle Coach. So we always hear about lifestyle, but our bodies need food and non-food nourishment, and so do our brains and our minds. So I think it's wildly important. Okay, so here's the funny thing. I never ate bacon until after my surgery. I'm sure I had it when I was a small child at breakfast, right? But for whatever reason, it fell off my radar screen, and it was never appealing to me. And then after my surgery, right after my surgery, I was craving steak and ice cream, which I don't eat either. But I think it was like my body was saying, you just lost a lot of blood. You need the blood back. And, something about the bones and I needed, I don't know. But anyway, but then somebody cooked me like a bacon and grilled cheese and bacon sandwich or something. And I was like, and there was some bacon on the side. I'm like, oh my gosh, where have you been all my life? I can't believe I've lived all these years without bacon. Like I had to have it in everything. I was buying chocolate bacon and like big bacon ice cream. Like it was the best. So, and that looks like a really nice piece of bacon. That's the whole story. And I also found Lay's potato chips too, and those were addicting for a while. I've gotten over it, but anyway, I haven't gotten over the bacon. I have a whole thing in my fridge. Coaching. Back to coaching.
Back to coaching.
I think the problem is a lot of people don't really understand what coaching is, and they, it sounds kind of intangible, and a lot of times people think, well, are you a nurse? No, we're not a nurse. We're not a nutritionist. We're not a dietitian. But we really are active. We're trained in active thinking. Now, I studied at Institute for Integrative Nutrition over 100 dietary theories, so I've got all that. But I take a very holistic approach to a human being, because sometimes a person might have a goal in mind, which turns out not to be their real goal, So I had a client that said, oh, I've got this shoulder and my neck. This pain in my shoulder, my neck, that's my number one goal. Can you help me get rid of it? And I'm like, well, tell me about your family. And she started crying because she had severed relationships with her two daughters, and it was destroying her. And as she's talking, she's rubbing, and her shoulders going up. So the problem wasn't this, it was the relationship that she needed to really, find peace with or restore or something. And then because that's where we keep all that stress. But so coaches are really just got a guide on the side,
Mhm.
tools and strategies. And then, the client really has to find the answers within, because our answers are always within. But again, we forget that we have that power. So, like in Jenny's case, I already have like a couple things I know I want to do with her. She wants to work with me someday, but I can keep like, was that subtle, Jenny?
Like bacon?
Like no,
Bacon?
bacon.
Bacon.
But like it's like a coach on like figure a coach of a basketball team or a football team that's giving their players tools and strategies and things that they need to practice and practice and practice, right, and implement on their own. And then they send them out to the fields. The person that's going to get across that goal line isn't the coach. It's the player that the coach is coaching.
Yeah.
So we're there to guide and advise and educate and to confirm into the listen.
Yeah.
Well,
that's exactly it.
And
with
there's mental health issues right now coming down the pike. Anyone. I even have coaching friends that coach me. Yeah.
What are you going to say, Jenny?
Mark, I was going to say, if you watched any of the videos that I've done over the last 6 months with the CBD companies, we were talking, especially around the holidays, about anxiety, depression, just all that, because there are so many people with PTSD and they don't even realize that, just around the COVID issue. Just around the COVID issue right now, and their illnesses that are coming out now. And it's really important. And that's pretty much why I've gone more of the CBD route. I was going to mention, Lynn, is that the reason I said, I'm not a coach. I kind of am a coach in CBD because there's so many rules and regulations around the government, FDA and FTC. Now FTC is involved. I'm like, what? But that I have to like really be careful about talking about or saying, oh, this is going to help you, because I can never say that something is going to help you for sure with your depression or with your anxiety. I can just suggest that you might want to try CBD oil or the gummies or the CBD salves or something, or the lotions, but I can never say, oh yeah, it's totally going to help you, because that's where I get in trouble. And the vendors that I'm repping, they get in trouble too. Like I've used some salves a couple weeks ago that made my muscles and my bones not hurt anymore. Wow. And you know what? But I can say that about me, but I can't say that. But even though I know that person might be having the same issues, I can't say, oh yeah, it's totally going to help you. Yeah, you just can't. So I think that's where Lynn has to be careful too, because this is where we have to tell clients or customers, we can suggest things, but we can't promise anything.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Now, y'all mentioned this reference to the bacon a couple of times, so I was wondering if there's anything that, Jenny, that you used to like that you don't like anymore, or vice versa, that is similar to the experience that Lynn had with bacon. So is there a bacon equivalent for Jenny?
Well, Lynn knows that I've been having a lot of issues with my computers and with actually the router. My router, yesterday we had to take it back to the company. I don't want to say which company it is, twice, because they didn't even register it. And I was like, and I can't drive right now. And so here's my caregiver having to take me twice, and he's all frustrated, not at me, but just at the situation. And I did exactly, I already told Lynn, and somebody else I'm talking to in Canada, that exactly what I was told not to do. No dairy, no chocolate. And what did I go do? Hashtag Dairy Queen. You guys are great. But I can't have something like that right now. Like, I shouldn't be having sugar. I shouldn't be having dairy. Right, Lynn? But I shouldn't be. And I did because of stress.
Right.
It's because my mindset was stress. And then she said to me today, you could have had nuts. Mm-hmm. And I told my caregiver that. I said, it's not your fault that I made you take me there after dealing with all these issues yesterday. I said, I was like, it's probably to get me to shut up, to be honest with you. But I told him I should have just had the nuts.
Yeah. Well, but now so when you're under stress like that, your body's going to crave sweets and carbohydrates. Right. So if you do have something else with you that like purple with egg white or nuts or some sort of protein just to stop the understanding. Maybe next time you go, I want a Dairy Queen. You go, oh, I know what that is. I'm under stress.
Yeah. And you know what? I used to carry around a bag of nuts all the time in my purse. So I don't still have them in there. I don't know why. So I've done that before. And what happens is that your mind all of a sudden will say, oh, I don't need the nuts in my purse anymore. But you do need the nuts in your purse. And you just need somebody to remind you that you do. So, and actually, I have a sweet potato, a mashed sweet potato right here next to me right now, because to me, that's sweet enough. And I said to Lynn the other day, I'm like, but don't you put maple syrup in there or something? She goes, you don't need to. It's sweet enough. And this is what I was going to say to you, Lynn, is that, and Mark, when you just said that, the sweet potato to me now tastes like there's sugar in there. It really does. And
I don't own maple syrup.
There's nothing in there. Like I don't need butter in there. I don't need anything in the mashed sweet potato. We just put it in the oven, baked it, and did that. So there's ways to change your diet, but it's tough. And if you think you can do it overnight, like Lynn said, it's not an overnight thing.
Speaking of not an overnight thing, and you actually alluded to it earlier, Lynn, so many people go to work every day and they don't necessarily enjoy when they go to work. I know we got a lot of folks that because of COVID, they started going into gig jobs and things of that nature. So when you're talking to people and you're coaching people and they're letting you know that they are in jobs that they are not happy with, what is your advice to them? Because I know that I've had a number of conversations with various friends and they'll tell you plain as day they don't like the job, but they also don't like living out in the street. So they figure that it's the only job that they can do, and it's what they got to do to pay the bills. So I was just wondering, when you have your clients that are not living their passion, living their dreams, and a lot of us are doing what a friend of mine, and I hate to use this slave narrative, would call a plantation job. They're only going to work, like I said, to pay the bills and to survive. So when you run into those folks, what is your words of encouragement to get them to actually live their dream?
So every situation is so unique. Some of those environments truly, truly are toxic, and the best advice is to get the heck out of there. There are like a lot of these sales industries, like car sales and furniture copier, like a lot of those very toxic, horrific, horrible environments. And people try to hang out there, and people are miserable. If that's not for you, just get out. It's creating too much stress.
Hey, Lynn, I think the pharmaceutical industries are really tough on people too. The people that are in them,
that whole sales culture has not evolved.
Yeah.
And some of the training they use still is like the Joe Verdi back in the 80s hyped up, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes there's a huge disconnect between like the HR and orientation training people might have like this great, we're doing all this, and at the line, none of it's implemented. So there's a lot of companies out there wasting millions of dollars on these great trainings that are just like thrown away, that they don't implement them at the line. But sometimes too, for me, for instance, I remember thinking, I hate my job. I'm so stressed out. It's causing me so much anxiety. I can't stand it. But then I stopped and I wait a minute. If I look at my relationships, my finances, my education, my home cooking, like my spirituality, all these other parts of my life, I'm really happy with all of them. Guess what though? Do I have any supportive relationships? Do I have like a ton of fun? Like, were they really that great? No. Right. But I was telling myself a darn good story about them. So I thought to myself, well, what's the story I'm telling myself about work? And is it even true? And once I shifted that story to a more realistic, what it truly is, how my career actually is benefiting me so well, other than focusing. So sometimes it's not even the career that we hate. It's the story that we tell ourselves about the career. Right. And check this out. When you wake up in the morning, how many seconds before you pick this up and you start like, oh my gosh, Cheryl's eating carbs again. She's going to get fat. Or oh my gosh, they went on another vacation. Like my life sucks. And then, you turn on the news and there's all this stuff and and then you're in traffic and then, you go to work and you get like same table, same computer, same annoying coworkers, or maybe you're trying to figure out whatever it is. And then you're like, oh, my job sucks. No, it's not your job. It's your thinking.
Wow.
How many times did you look in the mirror in the morning as you're getting dressed? Because I turned the TV on in my bedroom so I could hear it the whole time. You could hear in the news and you could hear the traffic, whatever, just saying in LA. And you get in the shower, you get in front of the mirror and you're trying to do your hair, blow it out, and put on your makeup. And you're talking to yourself about what you're going to tell people when you get into work. And you're angry, like you're angry with them. Like you're angry with them already, like, nah, all those things. And you're like, why am I having these conversations with myself when I should be working on the situation? Now, if you can't switch the situation that you're in, then get out of the situation, if you can. But I'm not telling people to leave their jobs. It's just, if you can't mentally handle that anymore. And I had like I was saying, a great spiritual network with me there. But that wasn't strong enough.
How important
on the work side too.
Yeah. How important do both of you feel it is to try to connect to all aspects? Both of you have mentioned it a couple of times, the spiritual connection and all of that. But I sometimes feel that a lot of times we get disconnected because we're all basically having the 5 basic connection points, whether that's the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, and maybe there's another one in there. But definitely those are the 4 primary ones. But how important do you feel it is to have those kind of experiences in the day-to-day routine? Because I sometimes feel that folks will, like we had that whole wellness movement where a lot of folks were getting into dance, getting into yoga, getting into a number of other things, but I didn't always feel that they were aligning it all together with everything else that they needed and all of that. So I just wondering how important do you think it is to have that aspect of the mental and the wellness, but to connect them all together?
Critical.
It's very critical, especially and I talked to Lynn about this the other day. I am still in the cannabis industry, and I'd go to events that were anywhere from 10 people to 3,000 people. And this was constant, and they all knew who I was. I knew who they were. And now that I'm not having that face-to-face anymore, I think that's tough. Like, it's tough on me. I'm just sitting in my apartment here. It's like 700 square feet all day, every day. Yes, I have a great, pool out there, and there's people walking their dogs outside, but I'm not able to do that right now. So for me, when I was able to get out, it was great for me. And I think I was walking more, and even though I was using my walker the last 3 years, I feel like I was more active, and my brain was a little bit more active because of that, because I was able to get out. I know a lot of people that are kind of living the same way. Right now, our state's pretty much locked down. Well, not so much anymore. I mean, it is, but it isn't. But there is a lot of fear, just like Lynn was just saying still. Actually, I think there's fear everywhere right now still. Mm-hmm. And I think there will be for a while. So it's kind of like, what can Lynn and I do, Mark? What can you do to bring that fear down and start helping people get out, like you were saying, to do yoga, go dancing. Then you do the yoga and the dance classes online with people. I don't know. I mean, I love Zooms and things like this, but I think face-to-face is better. And I mean, going to doctor's appointments every week for me, that's great. Not really. So that's not a great way to live.
We, in my opinion, have over time become so disconnected from ourselves, from our spirit, from our bodies, from others, from nature, and we need human touch. And if you are comfortable with it, go out and hug a friend or a family member or a complete stranger if you're fine with that. I mean, depending on your level of comfort right now. We need that. And, go out for a walk in nature. It'll provide a lot of D3 because the vast majority of people who are really suffered from COVID have a D3 deficiency. Check with your doctor about the amount of D3 you should be having. But a good way to get D3, and then there's these chemicals in plants when you're out in nature, besides that they get into your bloodstream and they help your immune system. So all sorts of, and do what's called grounding. Go out with your bare feet or in your socks or non-leather soled shoes, if there's any around anymore, and just stand on the ground, because it really helps balance out. It brings the good, I can't remember the science of it, but elements from the earth into the body, and it drains all of the stuff out of the body, the toxic stuff, and it's very relaxing. And that's something you can do with your family. But I think it's really important that, if you're suffering from any of those separations, reach out. There's so many different ways to address that, but I think it's so critical right now that we got to get rid of this fear. We've got to understand that we have the power to either improve our health if we're in that population that's more at risk, or just to boost our immune system anyway. I know that everything's going to be okay, because 99.9% of us will be fine, at least for now with the strain. But it's real. But again, what we were saying earlier, I think we're learning about, some people didn't even know they had autoimmune disorders.
Yeah.
And I think, so that's,
No, I agree with you on that, because one of the things I love doing is, even if it's just for a quick walk, is actually paying attention not just to the plants, but also the animals that are out there and everything. It might just be here in Durham, the birds or the squirrels, or definitely people's pets, the cats and the dogs and everything. And I think too often we kind of ignore them. We just kind of like walk by them and see them, but we don't really see them. But they can actually give us a lot of joy that we need to share the space, because we may be the quote unquote dominant species, but there are lots of other species out there, and we need to give them their due respect as well. And I think that part of that due respect is just observing the fact that they are sharing the space with us, and definitely honoring their existence and everything. Because I think that a lot of times we don't honor their existence, and we don't even pay attention to them. I can tell you that a couple of days ago, I was walking and saw a simple butterfly, and that simple butterfly, just its flight was something to put a smile on my face. And another time, I literally stopped and watched a robin. I think the robin turned around and decided to watch me. So I decided we were having a watching party. We were watching each other and everything. But just that moment of shared existence was actually something that I found very peaceful. And I think a lot of times we don't pay attention to the simple things.
And you know what that does when you do that, when you stop, and I always stop with the dogs. I have to, but I'll even look at a tree and that's my favorite bird, or that's and when you do that, and when you acknowledge the puppies, or I started again, the puppies or the trees or the plants or whatever it is, it's bringing you back into the present, and you're going back into that really healthy region of your brain.
Right.
And appreciating is so, appreciation was so incredibly important in my healing. It was one of the,
yeah. It's really interesting. I mean, this sounds, I know it's not great that we had to shut down the state pretty much, but we had a lot of antelope, that all of a sudden the huge, can't think of what they're called. They'd all just show up, they would all start running across I-25 or show up in a field. And I mean, the buffalo, if they could get out they were showing up. I mean, all of a sudden, all these animals were showing up everywhere. And I'm everybody's why do you think that's cool? And I'm because there was no pollution. There was no pollution here. And they were just yay. And there were no cars. I mean, there were minimal cars. And I just started hearing the songbirds 2 days ago. And I'm yay, the songbirds are out. So, I mean, I feel like they follow me from an apartment to apartment, to be honest with you. But I did find out, though, about songbirds because, they're lovely little creatures, but they actually eat ticks and they don't digest them. And they poop them out. And they actually drop. Wow. Yeah, they actually drop the spirochetes and stuff. So that's not good. Anyway, that's not good, but they look cute. I didn't even know I had a doctor on a radio show with me 2 years ago, and she said this. The guy that was running the radio show was live. All of a sudden, he starts going like that. He's like, "Oh my gosh, I have ticks in my hair because I have ticks in my hair." I guess he was doing that. I know him really well for 2 weeks. He kept saying, "I know I have ticks in my hair."
Wow.
And I was
that's a lot of times, because that's one of those and when you mentioned that earlier, the Lyme disease, that's something that definitely here in the South, there's a lot of ticks that come out, particularly in the springtime and every time. And a lot of times, I don't know that we pay enough attention to the small animals that can be pests and everything of that nature as much as we probably should. I do remember that when I was living in rural North Carolina, we went out to the woods and everything. We would definitely, almost do a whole body inspection to make sure that we had not brought any ticks back with us and everything. But I don't know if even enough people are aware of the dangers of ticks and Lyme disease and even some of the other things that exist out there. I mean, even like simple things like foot funguses and things of that nature can also be detrimental to our body health. And I don't know that we pay enough attention to those until it's that too late status and things of that nature. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, Jenny, about that, because I think that oftentimes we don't pay enough attention to the things that are going on in our life. I mean, such mildew can pop up in your bathroom, and a lot of other things can happen that can be detrimental to our health that we don't necessarily pay attention to. But I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, what people don't know and what they don't understand is that Lyme disease is in every single country right now, and it is a pandemic. But you know what? They don't want to admit that. All these countries don't want to admit that, because if they do, then people will panic, kind of like COVID. So why aren't these countries actually coming up with something for Lyme disease? We don't know. I mean, even our veterans, unfortunately, that are over in the Middle East are coming back with it. Why they're coming back with it, we don't know. I know they get all these vaccines. I know they had one vaccine for Lyme. People actually ended up getting it, so that's why they canceled it. So it's very interesting that they actually did all these trials on this Lyme vaccine for like 5 or 6 years. And even with that, and they started doing mass distribution of it, if you wanted it, people were getting it. So it's it's interesting. I'm not going to get into what's going on right now, except it's interesting that we can come up with a vaccine this quickly, but they can't come up with one for Lyme disease. So that's and I did get the second tick the tick that we know of for sure behind this ear. So that's scary, and that was in Mexico. And when you could it wasn't even Google, it was Netscape or something. You guys will remember that. When you could get on there and put in a word, and I just put in Lyme disease in Mexico. This guy was like, I got it in Acapulco, and I'm like, oh my God, that's where I got it too. So it's just interesting. Now it's everywhere. Especially in Florida. I know that they found it in the mosquitoes in Florida. And then also on the East Coast, especially the sand fleas on the East Coast. I mean, they're also on the West Coast for sure, but the East Coast, they're finding it. So, I mean, it's not just in the states that people think, like New York or Pennsylvania or Connecticut, Wisconsin, Minnesota, it's in every state. So that's why I've been going back and forth to so many states, to so many doctors, because I'm like, oh, the best one lives there. Oh, the best one lives there. It's easier now because I just fly around if I need to see them. So, well, now I don't right now, but yeah.
Jenny, I was doing all these summits last year. I did one on it was called Immunity Blueprint Summit, and then I did the Blessed and Distressed Stress Summit. Mm-hmm. But in the Immunity Summit, there was a guy that he was wildly intelligent. He's in South Carolina. He is an immunity expert, but he's also one of the top Lyme experts in the country. He's got this specialized credential in Lyme that very few people have. So I want to put you in touch.
I think I can't think of his name, but was he in North Carolina and they took his license away and he had to go to South Carolina?
No.
Okay. There's a big doctor that was in North Carolina, and they shut down his practice. That's what happens. These states go after these doctors. They think are over diagnosing people, or they go after the doctors. And that's what's happened with 3 of my doctors now.
Wow.
And
yeah. No, not him.
I know. Michigan. The first one was in Michigan. The second one was in the Hamptons, East Hampton. And the third one was in Boston. So
it seems to me that, and this is just my thoughts, but it seems to me that in the medical profession, in some degrees, and I'm not saying all of them because they're good doctors, just like they're good lawyers, bad lawyers, and every other kind of field that's out there, good engineers and bad engineers, but I do know that it does seem like a lot of doctors, and tell me if y'all agree with me, either underdiagnosed or overdiagnosed, because it seems to me that in some cases they are underdiagnosed and not giving the people the kinds of medicines that they need, whereas in other cases, and I'm thinking about people that were just going to be naturally hyper, because I think a lot of kids are hyper in general, but then they'll overdiagnose things like Ritalin, and it doesn't mean necessarily that they've actually got ADHD or that they've actually got autism or some of the other things that Ritalin can actually help cure and everything. They're just being what I think kids are anyway, which is naturally hyper and all of that. But I just wondered, do you think that that is something that sometimes goes on too much in the medical field, this kind of idea of either underdiagnosing or overdiagnosing?
Well, it's interesting to bring that up because they have found that a lot of kids that do have autism actually have Lyme disease. Now, a lot of people that do, not people, but that have ALS have Lyme disease. People that have Alzheimer's, dementia, they have Lyme disease. And they don't know that until they dissect their brains or something. They're like, oh my God, there's spirochetes like everywhere in here. So that's really sad because I met a doctor. He's a very well-known doctor in Colorado Springs, actually, who was diagnosed with ALS. And he was trying to tell them, give me some antibiotics. I really think it's Lyme disease. And he was so bad that he had a computer that could read his brain or something, it would come up on the screen or something. And they gave him the antibiotics, and guess what? He got better. Wow. Now he's still kind of, because it was so bad that he's still a bit brain deficient a little bit, but he wasn't walking. He was in an electric wheelchair and stuff, and now he's fine. So there are patients that are misdiagnosed like that. But the kids, it's really sad because they're going back to ADHD. How many kids were in my school that were like that? Is in elementary school, they're all hyper and everything. But guess what? They didn't put you on a drug for that. They put you on a timeout. There weren't even timeouts. It was more like you had to go home and your parents would deal with you or just sit in a corner or something, But they wouldn't put you on drugs that I remember. Do you know that, Lynn? Do you remember?
Yeah, there's just so many more incidences.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I remember when I was in my teens, maybe, I read a book called Dibs in Search of Self. And it was one of the first documented stories true stories about this young boy who was autistic. We didn't even know what autism was. Right. That was in the early 80s. Right. And now look at how many, 1 in 30 or something like that versus 1 in, I don't even know, hundreds of that. It's just, so I don't know what the problem was. I'm not an autism expert, but sure. No doubt things get diagnosed and overdiagnosed and misdiagnosed.
Misdiagnosed. And the other thing I wonder about, and you both, well, actually, Jenna, you kind of alluded to it, but I was just wondering your thoughts on this, is that sometimes, don't get me wrong, I'm glad they were finding the vaccine for the pandemic and they were rolling it out, and hopefully it's going to do that whole herd immunity and we'll get out of this pandemic that we're in and everything. But at the same time that we put this out there and everything, and we came up with this at a fairly rapid pace and everything, I've actually got friends, and I've known some people in certain circles and everything that have passed away of AIDS, which was out there in the 80s and everything, and it's still out there, and there's no real cure for that. So we came up with a cure really quickly for a pandemic, but we've also got other diseases out there, including one that I think one of you mentioned, MS and ALS and a number of other ones that are not getting the kind of research done that it probably should have done and all of that. So I know that we're in the middle of the pandemic, so that kind of accelerated everything. But at the same time, isn't this also show the weakness of the pharmaceutical industry and the medical complex in general? Because it seems to me that we were able to find a cure in less than a year for this particular pandemic. There are so many diseases out there, including the various cancers like breast cancer and prostate cancer, that we should have also found cures for as well. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about where we are in medical diagnosis and the hunt for these cures for a lot of diseases that are still out there.
I think as far as
I'll give that to you, Lynn. We talked about that earlier. So
yeah, this is just coming from over 1,400 hours of research since last February.
Mm-hmm.
I think the jury's out right now with respect to this, what we're calling a vaccine. The virus has never been isolated, so therefore this technically isn't by definition a vaccine. And it does not, what we've been told by the manufacturers is it does not stop transmission nor infection. What it does do is if you get it, it can reduce the symptom. But there have been a lot of people who are saying it's going to do this, it's going to do that, positive, negative, whatever, but we don't know because we haven't seen. We do know that a lot of people are being, and they've studied this, the mRNA technology has gone through animal trials before and failed miserably. So I just, I will wait and see. There are other things that kill us on a far greater scale: heart disease, car accidents, diabetes, complications from that. There's so many, Alzheimer's, dementia. There's so many other things that kill so many of us more per year. That many that can be reversed. Right. And because a lot of these are preventable. A lot of these have to do with lifestyle and diet, and stress. A lot of stress. Stress is really big, you guys, because you can actually have so much stress that you can create your own concussion symptoms. Right. Because it can create so much inflammation. And right now, pre-COVID, 60 to 70% of us were in a chronic state of stress. That's got to be over 90 now.
Yeah.
It just has to be. And so what happens is when you're in that chronic state of stress, your brain can it can make you sick because your brain can literally downregulate genes that create disease. So your thoughts and your stress can make you sick. Now, you can shift them and they can make you well as well. There's two sides of the coin there. But I think you're right. I mean, there's so many other things that we could be spending money on. And when we're writing checks for $1.9 trillion, and only 9% of it is going to the public for COVID. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's broken, and that unfortunately that we need. I think the only way to make any changes for a lot of people all at once to be banging on the doors of their local governments and saying, "Hey," and bringing the research. Not just, "Hey, I'm mad because." With some research that we've done, it's a real problem.
No, I definitely agree with you on that. Did you have any thoughts about that, Jenny? And then I was going to bring up another issue as well, and then get ready to wrap up in a little bit. But I wanted to know if you had any thoughts also.
On the research, on that side of the research for this, that I kind of keep it over to Lynn because she had said to me that she had spent 1,200 or 1,300 hours looking into this. I don't really feel comfortable with it myself, I'll be honest, because I have more than Lyme disease. I have multiple autoimmune diseases. And I had one doctor say to me, "I don't feel comfortable with you getting it because they haven't really done the research for the 20 plus autoimmune diseases that you have." He goes, "I don't even understand Lyme disease, so I don't feel like I can tell you to get that." 3 weeks later, he said, "Oh yeah, you're going to be fine." I'm like, how did they know I'm going to be fine? What I am finding out is that the hospitals are getting paid per patient by the pharmaceutical companies to actually get the vaccines.
It's been like that from day one for COVID patients. It's all about money.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So it's kind of like, they're probably going to come after me now and be like, take off your shirt and do this. Honestly, it kind of scares me sometimes. When I went to get the EEG, I thought, "Oh my God, what does that make me get it at the hospital?" You just don't know. You just don't know what they're going to do. And so that's fear right there. Why do we have to live in fear that we're going to be told we have to do something? I can't get the flu shot. Lyme patients that I know that get the flu shot, they end up in the hospital every single year. I don't get the flu shot because I don't want to be in the hospital. For something, because our bodies can't handle some of these things that they're putting in us. Sometimes people are fine, sometimes they're not fine. So for me, it's a little bit of it's a little bit nerve-wracking for me, but I guess it's not supposed to be.
Definitely not supposed to be and everything. One of the things I was curious about as well is a lot of times we think about the various pandemics that exist out there, and it's not just the health pandemics. I oftentimes hear people talking about the poverty pandemic, the race relation pandemics, and a number of other kind of pandemics that exist out there as well. Even with the poverty and the race relations, but I think that a lot of it has to deal with the way that we treat our food and food insecurity. So I'd love to hear, as a health person, some of your thoughts on that, Lynn. And I'd also love to hear from you, Jenny, about that as well. Because I know a lot of times those food deserts and those kind of places are oftentimes in poor minority neighborhoods and all of that. And definitely it's not just the police kind of stuff that's going on, but there's all the things that are going on with certain kind of stores that are placed in neighborhoods as well. And of course, where the fast food restaurants are oftentimes placed also. So I'd love to hear your thoughts just about the way that we need to be more, at least aware of where we're eating. I'm not saying that you can't go. In fact, I've got a tray or a box somewhere around here of fast food places a friend of mine dropped off for me in between different shows and meetings I was having this afternoon. But, at least aware of what you're eating, even if you do sometimes break the rules and eat the bad stuff. But I was just wondering your thoughts about being aware of that and how we can be aware of that.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a heck of a lot more than one Flint, Michigan. Our water.
Detroit. Well, Detroit. I was going to say the grocery stores. Just to come back to that, Mark, really quick. In Detroit, you can't even get to a grocery store in Detroit, like in inner city Detroit. And if you get anything, they have like a truck that pulls up, and it's not organic. So, Lynn, when you speak about the organic side of trying to eat that way and eat not fast food and things like that, because we don't have what they have over in Europe, like these grocery stores that are all organic, especially in London.
A lot of the countries still have things and laws in place that they will not accept glyphosate. They will not allow, and shouldn't get me going. But our farms, the soils are no longer biodiverse. So many of them anyway. And they are we've got GMOs, glyphosate everywhere, toxins in our food supply and in our water supply. They've been, telling us fluoride is good. It dumps us down. And the trouble is we believe that these and entities that are there just so protect us, so to speak, don't really do a great job at that. And a lot of the people that sit on these entities, I won't name them, are maybe former attorneys that used to be at Monsanto, for instance, who's getting the litigation slapped out of them now, finally. But when Bayer purchased Monsanto, they put that into the they probably embedded $68 million into the purchase price because they know they're going to have to pay that out at some point. But it's all contaminated. Even like this Impossible Burger that everyone's ranting about, the plant-based Impossible Burger tastes just like a burger, loaded with glyphosate. And for people who don't this has been going on since World War II. When the war ends, the chemical companies have to figure out, well, what are we going to do with our chemicals now that they don't need them for the planes and the boats anymore, right? So, but farmers need hydrogen and phosphate and whatever, nitrogen, and we can create products that farmers can use so they're using our chemicals. And same thing after the Vietnam War. The Agent Orange that defoliated the landscape, that goes into Roundup. Ooh, that's that's what's in a lot of these the produce out there. And so there's one scientist who estimated that there could be as many as 260 different chemicals on an apple or a strawberry. If you buy organic, that's not an issue or should not be an issue. But again, these people are tricky now. They were caught on glyphosate, but now they've created a new product. They called it something different. And the way that they got into this having just tons and tons of farmland is they would have their they patent this stuff, right? And so then they were like, hey, this is going to increase your yield, Mr. Farmer. And Mr. Farmer buys into it because maybe in the first year or two it increases yield, but then it goes. So then the wind blows these little things to the farmer next door. And the farmer next door these guys come over and say, you're using our patented thing. That's not allowable. We're going to sue you. And then that farmer goes out of business because they can't afford the lawsuit. So anyway, there's this whole thing that's happening. But people always say, now, if you know your farmer, that's a great step. If you can get into a CSA, that's a great step. A lot of people say, well, I can't afford to eat organic because it's so expensive. Well, what do you know? You would have to eat 5 times as much of the inorganic stuff to get the nutrients in the same amount of organic produce or fruit or whatever it is. Plus, you're getting all those toxins that are wreaking havoc. We've got so many heavy metals in our bodies right now and it's causing a lot of problems. There's more fatty liver disease now than there ever has been. Our guts are being destroyed, and those little villi that are supposed to keep the good stuff in and get the toxins out, it's doing it the exact opposite now. There are products out there that can help with all that, but I would say, yes, Jenny, eat organically as much as you possibly can. And even I mentioned to you today when you said oatmeal, I said, is it organic? Because now there's a ton of glyphosate in oatmeal.
Yes,
and
like those 2 days, I'm like, yeah, it's organic. I'm like, Mark, please make sure it's organic. Like I just
just 3 things that happened in the 80s, which is really interesting because we wonder, how did we get to be so unhealthy? Mm-hmm. 3 things that happened in the 80s. Deregulation of so Wall Street, first of all. Does anyone remember blue chips? Like, what are those? Like, it went from like long term into like 90-day profits, right? Mm-hmm. So these food companies have to like constantly be profit. And then there was deregulation in marketing, what you could put on food labels, so you could get away with anything. And then there was the change with the farmers. Instead of getting subsidies for how much green space they kept, they were getting subsidized for how much food that they can the yield, right? So, and then combine that was the era of big gulp and when the fast food things, right? And everything was big. So is it any wonder that we are where we are?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, no wonder that we are where we are. And one of the things that you mentioned that I agree with is that too often people think about the expensive nature of the organic foods and everything, but not thinking about the fact that you're actually saving money when you're eating organically. But I do know that people oftentimes joke about, and I'll name the nickname for one of them, whole paychecks and all of that and everything because of the prices that exist. And even like the food boxes that I know I get a food box try to get it every weekly, but even that's not overly cheap. I think they're like for some fruit and some vegetables and some things along those lines. It ranges anywhere from $26 to $50, and it can be more than that depending on what I decide to order and everything. But people are like, I can't afford that on a regular basis, not thinking, as you just said, about what they actually are saving by getting that organic food and actually putting that in their body and everything.
And then, hey, would you rather go and spend $5,000 at all these doctors because you're in such poor health, or would you? And even got to be careful at Whole Foods because, and sometimes in that prepared section, a lot of that stuff is made with canola oil, which they're not supposed to. So, yay.
But to see and check to see where they're getting their frozen edamame. Is it here? No, it's not. Where is it? Asia. So if you're getting the tilapia, is it a farm? Is it tilapia farm? Do you know what tilapia fish the farm actually eats? They eat their feces of the other fish. So, I mean, it's really, so I call it the SHIT fish. And my caregiver actually bought a frozen bag of that at Costco. Hashtag Costco. And I was like, you know what? He bought that when the whole pandemic started. I'm like, we are not going to eat that unless we can't get food. I'm like, I am not going to eat that. I'm like, did you just bring that over here? He's like, no. I'm like, you cooked something. I'm like, I'm not going to eat it. He's like, it's not that. I'm like, I don't believe him. I'm like, I'm sorry. But yeah.
And you know what else you can actually drink your greens too. If you get a very pure whole food, green supplement that has like 23 different or 30 different, whole food ingredients. And instead of because I I fill up my grocery with greens and beautiful vegetables, and I end up wasting half of them because I don't get through them quickly enough, you know?
Well, that is something I have noticed is that some of the greens that I've gotten, even like from last I mentioned, the produce box and everything, that unfortunately, because of the sometimes shorter life of some of those foods, I did find that some of them became scientific experiments because I didn't quite get to them fast enough. And then when I looked in the refrigerator, they had other things on them that told me that I didn't need to be eating them at that particular moment because I didn't eat them fast enough. So.
And sometimes, I mean, some of them you can freeze. I mean, some of them you can put in the blender, and I'm assuming, is that correct? You can put it in the blender, right, Lynn? And then you can freeze it.
There's lots of things.
Yeah, you could do stuff with them. You can cut them up, freeze it, just something. So, so at least you wouldn't waste it. But we never do that. Like, are you sure that spaghetti squash is still good? It's been in there for a month. I thought we were going to cook it that week, you know? So I'm kind of thinking that spaghetti squash again.
It's growing eyeballs and.
I guess
growing eyeballs, growing other things with it that you sit there going like, no, don't need to be trying to eat that and everything because then you might get that mysterious third eye yourself and all of that. I know a lot of times we talk just in society in general about waste, and I think that that's something else that we need to work on, and that to me is another pandemic because I know even on Brian's show he was doing the red button celebration and all of that because it actually started in London, so I know he's going to do it again in May, but he did one in March as well because I'm just shocked that in this country that we live in that we've got folks that are one staying at home and living out in the homeless environment, and that folks are also living under the poverty line. And in a world with as much resources as we have, that to me is just a crying shame that even exists in this time. But I was wondering, both of you, your thoughts on that as well, because I don't even understand how we can have not just poverty in the world, but definitely poverty here in the United States.
I don't understand it. And let me just say that in the last year, in the last year, I'm going off this cheat sheet. Bezos has increased his wealth by $76 billion. Mark Zuckerberg by $42 billion. This is a month old, so it's more by now. Elon Musk, $43 billion. So a lot of these people have increased their wealth by trillions just since February last year. And if they could donate just a little bit of that, we could really do, and it's a tax write-off to them. They could really do some wonderful humanitarian things. But now poverty, I'm really, really concerned. I don't know how this is going to play out. I really, really don't. But I know that there have been some deferments in debt, right? And people who are on the brink of eviction or maybe getting, we're going to defer, or maybe commercial real estate loans, deferred forbearance agreements. When that is gigs up, that a lot of that isn't forgiven. It's just deferred. And I am so concerned about what is going to happen are we going to see a spike in more homeless people? Where are these people going to go? I'm really, really concerned about what the upcoming trend is going to be.
It's really bad in Denver right now because I'm not out that much. So all of a sudden we're driving down this major street and he's like, didn't you see that right there? He was like, that guy's been there. This guy has a tent on the side of a really busy street. It just keeps growing, and he has more and more shopping carts there, and they're just letting him live there. They've let him live there all through the winter. But if you go downtown here, they are raiding downtown. All of a sudden, they're raiding downtown today. They pick up all the tents, they kick the people out. Or where are the people going?
Where are they going?
There's no place for them to go. Then if they show up at the food banks, the food banks are all gluten products. So
where do these people go when they get kicked out? They go to
nowhere. They just move.
A lot of times people just wind up wandering the streets and everything. Because I know here in Durham and everything that they had folks that were living. Of course, they have limitations to how many people can stay in the homeless shelters, but they would stay in the homeless shelters or the rescue missions and things of that nature. But they have strict time limits, so they have to be out by, let's say, 6, 7, maybe 8 at the latest And in some cases, they can't come back to 6, 7, or 8 that evening. So if they're not in the workforce, a lot of times they're just wandering the streets, or in some cases, we just had our library remodeled, and I haven't seen whether it's actually officially open. But in the past, they would go to the library just to kill time and things of that nature until they could actually get into the space and hope that they got into space. I mean, I agree with y'all. I've actually seen people literally laying in front of churches and other buildings and even underneath bridges right here in Durham just to try to find some place to sleep and everything. And that to me makes no sense in the city of medicine, is what the nicknames that Durham has, and of being in this rich resource area. Because like I said, RTP is partially in Durham, partially in Wake County. So it's in both counties. And to see these folks that are literally living underneath bridges and under on church stoops or in other kind of like places, even kind of coming to what Jenny talks about, living in like lawn areas and things along that line, but they're like off the highway. So there's a number of those things happening, and to me that makes no sense.
Like, this is a street that has 2 lanes, well, a lane that goes into 1 lane both ways, and here's this guy like living on the corner right outside the Walgreens. I mean, seriously, I mean, it's terrible. So there are cops driving by there all the time, and they're just like, oh, whatever. So I mean, where are they going to put him though? So they're probably not going to pick him up because they're like, what are we going to do with him? So, or her, I don't even know if it's a man or a woman or a family, which is terrible. And it's really disgusting what's happening here. You can't even get a house here, not even like a 1-bedroom house here. If you want to buy one, it's like $600,000, and it's like 800,000 square feet. Not 800. I'm sorry, 800 square feet. I mean, the prices here are just going crazy. So going back to what you're saying, Lynn, I mean, if they're doing the 3 and 5 year loans still for people that are buying homes, does anybody remember what happened in like 2000? What was it? 2007?
Yep.
It's happening again. It's happening again.
Yep, I can see that. Because what is the rents going for where you are, Jenny? Because I know here we were complaining when we get up to $1,500 to $2,000, and I say most of them are around $1,000. But I've heard that some of the rents in places out west and in the Midwest can be anywhere in the neighborhood from $3,000 or $4,000 just for an apartment and things along that line.
Yeah, the apartments around me in this area, just a 1-bedroom, they're like anywhere from $1,250 to like $2,000. Downtown, they're as high as 3 or 4. Just for a
1-bedroom apartment, not even like 2. Wow.
Yeah, just a 1-bedroom. So I mean, it's just, I'm paying as much here that I'm paying more here for a 1-bedroom here. I'm paying as much as I was paying for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath in LA, looking at the Hollywood Hills.
And when I moved from San Francisco to upstate New York, for like almost a 5,000 square foot home with my husband, our mortgage was less than our 2-bedroom flat in the city.
Yeah.
Wow.
Small 2-bedroom flat. Yeah.
The mortgage was less than that. That's just crazy. Yeah, there's just too many problems that are going on in society, and definitely all of that. On a more positive note, and then I'll get ready, like I said, wrap up very shortly and everything. Thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. We'll have to do it again at some time or another. But social media, I know Brian's really big on the social media and all of that, and sometimes it can have its good aspects, but also its negative aspects. So I'd love to hear both of your thoughts about social media as a marketing tool and how y'all enjoy using social media and the benefits and detriments of social media, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook. I sometimes get upset at the Facebook police that like to, I know I've got a friend of mine that does a funk music show, and he's actually had the permission from leaders in the funk music community, including like Bootsy Collins and others, to play their music, got their permission, and still the Facebook police said that they were going to give him a strike, even though he had permission from the artist himself. But I was just wondering your thoughts about the use of social media.
Lynn? When you say that, I'm like, no, I'm going to shoot that first.
Yeah, I am. Hey, it serves a purpose, right? I really like LinkedIn. That's kind of my hangout. I do some on Facebook, but not much anymore, because it's another time it sucks my time out, right?
Yeah.
I only have so many hours in the day, and it does become, it can become, if you're one to check all your notifications and respond, it's a lot. My whole thing is the whole compare and despair. If it's something that you are using and it's causing stress in your mind and body, you gotta shut it down. You just gotta shut it down. So there's that whole, but I think LinkedIn has been wonderful. Instagram, I don't know, it's not my hangout. What I do not like about what's been happening on especially YouTube, but also Facebook, is the censorship and how we're not allowed to have a point of view anymore. That might be contrary to someone, a mainstream view. And I think that's what makes us such a great country, is are able to have this discourse, these conversations with opposing views. When I remember when I was young, and my friends and I didn't agree on anything, but we would like say our point of view, and then we probably make a joke about each other, and we get on with life, and we're still best friends.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how can we not all have varying perspectives when we all come into this world from a different lens, with a different point of view, different experiences that shape who we are? It would be impossible for us not to have differing views, and to close down a conversation, I think, is just really a slippery slope, very, very dangerous. And that is my big beef right now.
Yeah. I think Twitter's the same way. I don't use Twitter at all anymore.
I got off
Twitter page. You do or you don't?
I got off Twitter. It was too many haters.
Yeah, Twitter is terrible. But I mean, I got a Twitter notification. I thought the person was coming after me. No, it was about somebody that I was following or something. I don't even know, because I was in so many different industries. Like, I must have been following that person at some point. I don't even know who they are. And I was like, ooh, it wasn't towards me. It was towards that person. But still, you wake up to that. You're like, wow. You're like, okay, it comes from my phone in the morning. I'm like, oh, not interested. But Lynn, I think that YouTube now is owned by Facebook now?
Yeah, they're owned by the same.
Yeah, as is Instagram. So I'm kind of like, if you get shut down out of one, they kind of like, they close everything down. So especially in my industry, that's why I wanted you to speak about this first, Lynn, sorry. I have to be very careful in the cannabis industry, like I was saying before. But I was doing social media for a payroll and benefits company that was handling payroll and benefits in the hemp and the cannabis side, or the MJ side. We try to say cannabis to be politically correct now, but yeah. So I've known how to be very careful on those on those social media sites, what you can do and not do, and the hashtags that had to be changed now, even with what I've put up, because you can't say like CBD and Alzheimer's or CBD and autism, because you can't connect. You have to do a hashtag CBD, hashtag autism, hashtag pain. They can't be CBD and pain. Like, you can't, or CBD pain, you can't say anything like that. So I've had to go through and change everything since the FTC got involved. And then also before that, I don't know. I've done about social media for a long time. And even before I was in an industry that was cracking down, we had to be really careful. I was always careful. And I don't go after people. I'm just not that person. The other thing, when it comes to race relations and things, I have a huge issue with that. And that's a big thing in my industry right now. Like, why are the banks not giving money to African Americans? And why are they doing this and that? And why are they being treated differently? Why are African Americans being treated differently with arrests around cannabis and everything? Guess what? There's more arrests with whites than there are with African Americans, to be honest with you. Do they get longer sentences because of cannabis? Do the African Americans? Absolutely. And it's not fair. Like, it's not fair. And I'm completely against that. So, but they look at me and they're like, what do you mean you're Native American? You don't look like you are. Do I have to look like it? I don't have to look like that. So going down that road, since you went down that road a little bit, Mark, that really bothers me about social media is that people are very judgmental on social media, and the fact that you have to be careful about what you're saying or even liking what people are posting because you agree with them and you're not African American or you're not Hispanic or you're not Puerto Rican. I don't care. Like, for me, that doesn't matter. Like, Usama today on LinkedIn said, "Oh my God, Jenny, I love your new profile picture. I'm so glad you're checking with us today," because he was live. And I'm like, "Oh, thanks." And I liked what the guy that he was interviewing was saying. So, and what he was saying also. So to me, that's a very important relationship to keep, because for me, that's important. And I don't understand the race relations thing. I was actually engaged to somebody from Lebanon, originally from Lebanon, and spoke 5 languages. For me, that's like a high for me to be involved with people like that. The guy that I was engaged to. Now he's a Buddhist monk. so you know, I didn't make him that way. I swear to God, he just somebody after me. It was that, but he was into that anyway beforehand. But I just think that even religions and being racist, not kind of racist about that, I don't even know what to say about that. Just about, bug people about the religions and things like that. It irks me more than anything. So that's more
definitely.
spiritual
And Jenny,
stuff.
along those same lines, I actually had this person on one of these streaming shows, but also I do an audio podcast as well with my friend Dean Geronimo. That's actually his stage name. His real name is J.W. Piercy. But I did a show with a woman that's a publicist out of Canada, and we were talking on both platforms about the fact of after cannabis became nationalized in Canada, the industry also became very white. It became very much the corporate heads were coming from real estate, coming from banking, coming from finance. And there's a fear that as we have more and more states legalize cannabis here, that could also happen here in the United States as well. So I just wanted your thoughts about that, because she was making it very clear that the boardrooms went from being mom and pop kind of shops with a lot of people that were African American, different other nationalities, but definitely wasn't as corporate based. And now it's very corporate based and very white male board centered.
Yeah, it is. And that's bothering a lot of us here. And I do know a lot of companies, not a lot of companies, but a couple of companies that are doing very well. They're run by African American women and men. And it just makes me very proud that they're actually this one company actually just posted it on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. This one company here that's African American just got into Canada. So and they got into they're African American in Canada too. So it's kind of like a dual company. I shouldn't say that, it's dual African American companies that are working together in Canada and the United States, and people are like, finally. But it's going to be active more in Canada than here, but they're very active down here. So, I mean, that right there is a big step, but still, why does it have to be a big step? Why can't that just be normal?
And also, now the pharma companies are going to be involved. And that just, yeah.
And that's a whole nother rabbit hole. As I said to Lynn the other day, I kind of took you down a rabbit hole the other day, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole that pharma is trying to get in. Our country is all about that. Canada seems to be getting all about that too. Hopefully the Australians won't get into that hole also. But I do know a lot of CBD companies that are getting into South American countries, but they're teaming up with, they have to team up with doctors, like in Brazil, and they have to get their prescriptions through the doctor just to get CBD oil. And some countries want to let you have the CBD oil, like Canada. It has to be more of a salve or something like that. And before I go down another rabbit hole, I just wanted to let you guys know, I understand what you're saying about the farmers here, because and the soils and everything being very polluted. If they would just let us plant hemp everywhere, the hemp actually pulls all the toxins out of the soil. So then you can actually use that farmland again. So that's a big push that we're trying to do right now, like the U.S. Hemp Association, things like that. They're trying to get our government to really glom onto that. I mean, if we would plant hemp around all these chemical companies, and actually at Chernobyl, I believe they're doing it over there. How many years ago was that? They're pulling all that stuff out. My question is, though, when they pull it all out, they're not going to make oil out of that for people to take or ingest. So how do you burn it?
Right.
Do you really want to burn it into the atmosphere if it's already pulling out radiation and things? So anyway,
definitely.
with
Jenny,
that, I'm done with my. Sorry.
No, definitely. I was enjoying the conversation and definitely bringing up some very good points. One thing you just mentioned, and actually, me and my immediate family, meaning my dad and my younger brother and my nephews and everybody else, mom as well, primarily identify as African American. We know that we have Native American roots, but actually have cousins with Native American roots. They actually participate in the powwows and actually go around the nation competing, going to Oklahoma and New Mexico and things of that nature. And it seems to me that you have some of those roots as well, particularly on the Native American side. So I'd love to hear you talk about that aspect of your roots and how important that is and how you identify within that culture, if you identify within that culture at all.
I know. I mean, I just know it's in our background. My great uncle or something married a Cherokee woman, and it's really funny because sometimes I'm like, before I was dyeing my hair at all, I'm like, wow, those are really dark black hairs. And my dad's like, that's because that's from your great aunt or whatever. I was like, oh, and we have the pictures, like her hair was parted in the middle and braided this way, all this stuff. And there were charcoal drawings, but she was she was born in West Virginia and my uncle was from West Virginia. So yeah. They're Iroquois. Did I say Cherokee or Iroquois? They're Iroquois. So I'm Iroquois. Yeah, but I don't really talk about a whole lot because I don't go to powwows and stuff. I'd like to, but I really believe in shamans. I do believe in shamanism. And I do have some that come up to me and they're like, "You have Native American in your family?" I'm like, "Yes." They're like, "Okay, bye-bye." They're like, "Just wanted to know." They're like, "I'm a shaman." "Okay, bye-bye." And I'm like, "You can stay here and talk to me more." But they know. They just know.
Yeah, you should definitely have a conversation with them. I can tell you that my cousin Verna that competes with her husband Lonnie, as well as their kids, they do like the fancy shawl dances and a number of the other dances. So those dances can be very intense and very wonderful to watch and all of that. And they also do a lot of the Indian drumming, and a lot of that is part of their ritual celebration. So if you haven't attended a powwow or seen, actually I haven't been to a powwow. My brother's been to a few, but I have definitely been to some of the year-long celebrations that we have not that far from where Lynn's living at now, because she's in Marsville, and they actually do a big celebration in Raleigh. So I've been to about 4 or 5 of them. It's actually near what I call Museum Alley, which is over there near the state capitol and everything, but they usually do that. Ironically, they do it in November, like a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving. So I'm sitting there going like, wait a minute. So a couple of weeks later, we're going to have a whole celebration revolving around the Indians and the Native Americans and the not that great unity breakfast that they had together. But a few weeks before, we're going to have their celebration. So I always thought it was kind of ironic that they decided to do their celebration on the same month as Thanksgiving. But that was just one of those life ironies.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, but thank you so much, Marc, for having me on today.
Oh, no problem. Glad to have both of you on. One of the things I always do at the end, and I'm getting ready to do that now just so everybody can get to their day, I can go watch a little bit of basketball. Lynn hasn't given me a sports update, so I don't know what the score is and everything, but I'll go catch it because it's about, it's early in the game. It's only 6:01 right now and everything. But one of the things I always have all my guests do, because it is an international broadcasting platform, is given any words, and y'all have been doing this all during the course of the interview and everything, but any words of encouragement, words of positivity that you would like to share with the global community. So I'll start with you, Jenny, and then come up to Lynn. But any words of positivity and words of encouragement that you would like to share with folks? Because we do have folks on this network that do shows from places as far away as South Africa. I know we've got a show that airs that talks about people creating their own TV shows and everything, and that's out of Colorado, if I remember correctly. And then we've got a guy that does a show out of Nigeria. So there are folks that do shows from all over and guests from all over as well, because there's a gentleman that comes in pretty much every day on their news morning show that's from New Zealand. So definitely there are people that are coming in from around the globe, and there's some folks from India as well. And then we have watchers from all over the globe as well. But any words of encouragement or positivity? So it's on you, Jenny.
Thank you for putting that on me. So I just want to let everybody know that there's a way that you can heal yourself. I'm really glad that you've been listening to myself and to Lynn, because you can heal yourself. And I know it's hard, and I know that there's a lot of things out there right now, and it makes it difficult to figure out what you should do. But definitely get in touch with Lynn or myself, and we would love to help you. We're both doing different things, but I think it's very important. Also, I'm really excited that you said somebody's here from South Africa, because guess what? You guys are growing hemp now. I believe Nigeria might be too. I think I just saw something about that also. So Africa is definitely in the hemp world right now. I know Australia is. I believe New Zealand is also. I know companies are going in there to sell their CBD products. But I just really want everybody to know that they can heal themselves. And just because we've had crazy autoimmune diseases, and all of you guys might also, you don't want to talk about it, just listen. You can listen to my podcast, not podcast. It's not. They're all on YouTube, and they're all on Jenny's Gold Standard on LinkedIn also, if you watch those. So please feel free to reach out.
All right. Any other social media you want to share before I toss it over to Lynn? I mean, you definitely mentioned the LinkedIn and you mentioned the YouTube, but what's the YouTube web page and any other things that you want to share?
So I have Jenny's Gold Standard on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Cool.
So everything's up there. If anyone's interested in CBD products, I have discount codes in there. But the thing is, sending them overseas right now, even to neighboring countries like Mexico or Canada, I don't think the companies I'm working with right now can actually send to any other countries right now. But definitely reach out to me and send a direct message, and I'll let you know that if you're interested in something, if we can do that.
Sounds great. What about you, Lynn? Any words of encouragement or positivity that you want to share with our global community?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Jenny said, because we can heal ourselves. And I've cured myself through autoimmune, through cancer, through the brain injury. We have the power within. We've just forgotten. And I think a lot of these things we know. We just need someone to remind us, because we all have the knowledge within. We really do. We all have the power to heal ourselves. And I can be found mostly on LinkedIn, but also on Facebook. And may I pitch my book?
Yes.
So if you guys want to check out my book, it's called Altered on Impact. So and it's on Amazon, and it's just the true story of my injury and then a healing journey through. And it actually offers, at the end of almost every chapter, really practical, actionable exercises, effective exercises that you can implement right away. And I think if you've got Prime, you can even get like a free ebook. But yeah, let's love each other. Even if you don't like somebody, you can love them. Send that loving vibration out there. We really, really need it, because there's so many people judging with such conviction right now. We need to love back with even more conviction, and we can do that.
No, I definitely agree with you. And I'm actually going to backtrack. And actually, that's usually the ending. I'm going to backtrack, but I forgot that about your book and everything. If you can really quickly, Lynn, give us some of those steps that you talk about in that book and some of the life lessons that you learned in the book as well. I remember that when we talked before, you shared that with me, and I found it really poignant. So I love that to be on this as well, since this is the official record.
So I talk about what I call the 6 impact imperatives for sustainable change, because, and I came up with them kind of by accident, intuitively, chronologically. It was starting with awareness, and that was the awareness of who I was as injured Lynn, and then who I wanted to become. But then I also became very aware of when people would call and yell and scream about how horrific this was, and I was never going to run again, and aren't you mad? I literally, when I had these bad thoughts come into my brain, my brain would swell inside my head. I would get eye pain and dizziness and nausea. And I learned very quickly, I have to pay attention to my thinking. And I learned that I can control my thinking. And I learned that I can not only put a thought of an ocean, I can actually imagine I'm sensing the feel of being at the ocean. And then I came upon appreciation and how good that felt. So I started to, so that 6 impact imperatives that were very instrumental in my healing were awareness, appreciation, elevated emotion, meaning take that intention of who I wanted to become and align an emotion with that intention so that it's creating a memory in my body, because your body believes everything your brain tells it. It doesn't know if it's something that's happened or you're creating it in your imagination. Curiosity and continued learning that is going to be learning about whatever it is that's going to be supportive of my end goal. In this case, I wanted to be well, and I wanted to be happy, and I wanted to be I wanted to have vitality, and I wanted to be positive, and I wanted to stay positive. So anything I could find out there that was going to be supportive of that big whole lin, not a broken lin, and then repeating whatever I was learning, constantly repeating. And then the last one was commitment. And meditation was very huge for me. The practice of appreciation was really huge for me. Imagination was huge. So did you want specific examples?
Yes, if you could, please.
Yes. So this one thing, my clients really love this one for whatever reason. For appreciation, I would do this thing, or a couple things. I would do this thing where I could no longer run, but I could walk. So I walked and walked and walked and walked. People around here call me the Forrest Gump of walking. You've probably even seen me out there walking, Mark, and didn't even know it because I walk everywhere. So I do this thing where I look at the sky and I say, thank you, God, thank you, universe, whatever you want to call it, source, spirit, whatever. Thank you, universe, and thank you for, and I go words of appreciation from A to Z. So thank you for appreciating me, bestowing good things, for clarifying, for developing, for empowering, for filling, for guiding, for helping, blah, 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 all the way to Z. Then I do it in Spanish, and then I try to do whatever I can in Swahili because I speak a little Swahili. So that's fun, and it just kind of shifts you right into a state of appreciation. You can't help but feel happy when you're doing it. And then another one I do is there's a place in one of the roads where I walk where there's 2 trees that form a canopy over the road. They kind of join. And as I'm approaching that canopy, I pretend that the plane that my body creates, my shoulders create, everything behind that, it doesn't exist anymore. But that plane that those trees are creating, when I cross that plane, I'm stepping into my future. So with every step, I'm stepping into that future. And while I'm walking, I'm trying to envision what's on the other side. Meditation, like I said, became very important. And if you can, a lot of people say, I don't know how to meditate. And I say, okay, close your eyes, breathe in, breathe out, repeat. And we sit there for 30 seconds. Okay, you just meditated. It's pretty simple. And there's a lot of reason for that. The Tibetan word for meditation is Om, and that means to become familiar with the mind. So you can really, my 3 go-tos here for trying to identify when you have faulty thinking is meditation is very helpful. It's helpful for a ton of things, but it's helpful for that. Somatic responses. So for instance, when I was having the heightened sensitivity to my body's reacting, and if I got those symptoms, I knew I had a bad thought coming into my field. So somatic responses, meditation, and your emotions are the greatest indicator that something's going on up here. Because if you're walking around having a good day, and all of a sudden you tense up, you feel anxiety or fear, something just happened up here. You just went down a little bit of a faulty thought pattern. Or maybe, maybe you're in the kitchen doing dishes, but the boob tube is on. That still goes in the program. We have eyelids, but we don't have earlids. So we still go through. So those are a few, but like I said, every chapter, there's charts, I've got this thing about net operating energy. So instead of net operating income, and you can go through your daily, you have your income items and expense. This is banker and me talking, income and expense. And then you put down those things that gave you a lot of fuel positive energy throughout the day, and you assign a value between 1 and 10. And then you do the same for, like, so maybe you had a wonderful breakfast. You gave your spouse a really nice hug. You had a compliment from a colleague, whatever it is. And then you look at the things that drain your energy, like bad eating, fight with somebody, too much TV, whatever that is. Yeah, pizza and chips and you assign a value. And then you see, is that bottom line negative or positive? And if it's negative, you got some work to do. If it's close to zero, there's some work. And you go back and you look at those items and say, which ones do I have the power now to shift, to change a little bit? So I've got lots of these little things all throughout the book.
Sounds great. Sounds like an amazing book. Definitely look forward to getting a copy of the book and reading it myself and all of that. So since I know that we've been sitting here for a while, and I know that Jenny's been kind of like stretching and ready to go.
No, it's just my back, so.
Yeah, I know. And that's what I was going to say. I know that you probably need some time away from the back, sitting down and everything. But Jenny, really quickly, and I'll let you have the last word before I hit the in broadcast and everything. What are some of the life lessons that you feel you have learned through your journey? We definitely learned some of Lynn's through her book and everything, but any of the life lessons that you have learned just in life that you would like to share, and that's what I'll use to be the in broadcast part. So Jenny, share some of your life lessons as well.
I would think, or I want to say, spirituality, I think, is number one. I think it's really important. You are who you are. You don't need to believe necessarily in what your parents believe in. I agree with what Lynn was saying. You're brought into this world through them, but you need to, and through your family, but you can just do what you want to do, right? Then also, the other thing I really wanted to touch on again was just be yourself. Just be yourself and just love people. Please love people. There's a lot of negativity right now in the world. And it doesn't matter where you live, doesn't matter what country you're from, just love people. I keep seeing people walk out there. I just sort of go, hey, there's one right there with their dog. And I was like, hey, can I give you a hug? They're probably not going to do that because our office is shut down right now because they think there might be COVID in the leasing office. So I was like, okay. So everybody's like, don't touch me. But I
had a group hug with perfect strangers the other day. They just offered a hug and I took it.
I know I want to right now, but I'm like, they'd probably be like, yeah, in the office.
I want to piggyback off of something you just said, Jenny, because like I was saying to you, Mark, yesterday, I really truly believe if I learned anything through my accident, it's that everybody's beautiful, everybody's epic, everybody has we're so unique. Every single one of us is so unique, and I came through a place after the injury where I truly, truly, truly knew what it felt like to truly love myself for the first time ever. Truly feel that love for myself, and when you get to that place, you can't help but love everybody else. And I think the greatest gift we can give humanity is our unique, self-actualized, being in this world, period.
No, there's no doubt about that. I know that my friend Zach, who I've mentioned a couple of times, that does the Funk Music with Zach show on Sundays here on IBM TV, International Broadcast Media, as well as a show that he does on his own network, Nine on the Grind, called Funk from the Front Seat. One of the things that he oftentimes talk about, and he's actually deemed me as one of these people as well, and definitely we've talked to other folks that are in this category, but he oftentimes talks about what he calls light warriors. And I'm not always sure who the light warriors are, but I have no doubt in my mind, after having talked to both of y'all for a little bit over 2 hours, that y'all would be considered light warriors as well. So these are people that are actually in the light. They see a lot of the positivity in the world, and they're trying to find ways to encourage that positivity to happen in the world, and trying to be the forces of positivity within the whole battles that go on between light and dark. But definitely I would consider both of you light warriors, and I think Zach would say the same, as well as a number of our other friends that are light warriors as well. So I want to thank both of you for being here with me and for this great and amazing conversation. And like I said, I look forward to having y'all come back on in the near future as well. And anytime y'all want to share your story, you're always welcome to come back here on the International Broadcast Media. Anything that I'm involved in, whether it's the radio show, whether it's the online dinner party, whether it's Mullings Music and Memories, or a number of the other things that we do on a regular basis, you're always welcome to come back. I find both of you to be two truly amazing people, and I'm glad to call y'all both friends of mine as well. So like I said, I'm glad that I was able to meet y'all through Brian and Tim and that whole community, but definitely consider y'all both to be two friends of mine. And I found out just yesterday that Lynn is just down the road over here in Morrisville while I'm over here in Durham. So definitely glad to see that. And at some point, just like me and Nick talk about, because Nick is one of the founders, I believe he lives in, well, Kim lives in Raleigh. I think Nick lives somewhere here around Durham as well. But we keep talking about after this whole COVID thing ends, that we will find a way to connect and go out to a restaurant or something like that. So at some point, Lynn, I'll have to give you a call and we'll have to see about catching up and seeing each other in person as well. And I definitely want to see and spend some time with Jenny as well. Just means that I got to catch a plane or something to make that happen. But I look forward to spending some quality time visiting her also. So definitely on that note, I'm going to end the broadcast and definitely want to thank folks for joining us here on the International Broadcast Media. For those of you catching up on the news in the world, let me tell you about some things that are happening in the sports world. Hubert Davis has been named the new coach of the UNC basketball team. The News Observer, one of our local newspapers, was the first to report the news on Monday, and the school confirmed it later on in the afternoon. Definitely UNC Board of Trustees voted to approve his employment agreement in the afternoon. Davis, 50, so around the year younger than my younger brother, played for legendary coach Dean Smith from 1988 to 1992. He spent the past 9 seasons as its assistant coach under outgoing head coach Roy Williams. And he will be the first black head coach in the history of the program. So we're seeing a lot of these history-making kind of programs and things happening. I know I had that happen at my alma mater, Marquette, where they just named Shaka Smart as the new head coach, and he's the first black head coach in that school's history as well. Davis said, "I am humbled and honored to be given the opportunity to lead this program." Davis said in a statement by UNC, "I would not be here without Coach D. Smith, Coach Bill Guthridge, and Coach Roy Williams. They taught me so much, and I'm eager to walk their path in my shoes and with my personality." So once again, congratulations to Hewitt Smith, who has been named the new coach over there at UNC. So UNC has named Hewitt Smith as their new coach, and we'll see how he does and what direction he takes the team in. They've struggled the last couple of years, but Roy was thinking the game had gotten away from him, and he wanted to turn it over to some new voices, some new faces, and all of that. So it's going to be interesting to see how things are going in that regards. I know I've still got to get my vaccination, but you'll be glad to know that 1 in 4 people here in the state of North Carolina, it looks like they have already received theirs, and that means that's good news. That means maybe we'll get out of the mask culture after a while. It will have more and more people that will be not wearing the mask, and we'll be able to get more and more out, maybe less into the hybrid kind of world that they are forecasting will be dealing, and maybe into some more realistic kind of things. But I do imagine that the mask will be a thing for a while, as well as that more and more people will be trying to do other things and trying to do things out in the public now that they're finding out that the vaccinations are going in people's arms and all of that. So definitely that's one of the things that's going on in the news. They're saying that more and more people are getting vaccinated, 1 in 4 right here in the state of North Carolina. So glad to hear that that is the case and all of that. So definitely they're saying that now 1 in 4 North Carolina adults are fully vaccinated, which I guess means that they either taken the 2 shots if the 2 shots were required, or they're taking 1 shot if only 1 shot was what folks were being told that they needed, and along those lines. So definitely that's some of the things that are going on in the news that folks might be interested in and all of that. So definitely a lot of things are happening in our world and in our news report. So definitely more and more things are going on, and I know a lot of people are paying attention to a lot of things that are already there and things along that line. So definitely it'll be interesting to see how things go and what people do as we continue on going on this route of just amazing things happening in life and all of that. So definitely it'll be interesting to see how things go and what people have to say as life continues on and all of that. By the way, I see that Tim Sohn has joined me once again, so he's popped in and he's just sharing his hellos and all. So always glad to see Tim in the house and what he's sharing with us also. By the way, Tim earlier did a pre-interview, so I had 2 of your friends in the house as well. So we had Jenny Gold and did an interview with them that we just finished airing. So Jenny Gold was in the house, as was Lynn. So those are the 2 of the folks that I've had the pleasure of meeting through Tim Sohn and Brian Shulman. So they are doing some great work, and it was very good to see them in the house as well. So definitely it was amazing to see that kind of conversation going on. There's also conversations going on around a push to end shackling of North Carolina inmates during labor. That's right. There's an article about pregnant in chains. In the summer of 2019, a pregnant woman started going into labor in jail. Guards chained her up, put her in a transport van, and sent her to Vidant Medical Center in Greenville. But they weren't quite fast enough. She partially delivered her baby. On the way to the hospital, its head broke through to the outside world, but not to the rest of its body. So when she got to the hospital, said one of the doctors there, the deputy escorted her, wouldn't take off her shackles due to jail policy. So hospital workers had to cut off her clothes. She remained shackled while she finished delivering her baby, who was rushed into intensive care while the mom was whisked to the emergency room. The baby did not survive. When they brought the baby's body back to his mother, she reached out to hold it and grieve, but was jerked back away from her baby by the chains, still hunting her down onto her bloody stretcher. Dr. Carrie Ann Crockett, the OBGYN who helped deliver the baby, cries when she tells the story. It was truly horrific, she said. So she's channeling her own grief and anger about the day into an effort to convince state lawmakers to stop shackling pregnant inmates. The practice already is banned in federal prisons due to a criminal justice reform law that then President Donald Trump signed into law in 2008. The state prisons and county jails hold far more inmates than federal prisons. In North Carolina, a bipartisan group of lawmakers is expected to file a bill within the coming days to ban the practice in those facilities too. So it looks like this is a bipartisan effort that folks are looking at having going on and all of that. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out and whether that law is passed and all of that. So definitely looks like there is a bipartisan support for this particular bill, and definitely anything that will stop cruelty, we definitely should not be having that going on as well. So definitely glad to hear folks sharing a little bit about what they've got going on in their life and all of that. And Tim was saying that he can pop in and maybe even share a little bit of what he's got going on as well. So I'm going to do something a little bit unorthodox. I'm going to put in a copied link into the comments, and then maybe he can pop in. Or if y'all want to pop in, y'all can pop in. Anybody can pop in. So definitely we're going to do that right now. And definitely we'll see if he wants to pop in or not. So definitely if anybody is interested in popping in and just wants to share their time, that's all they got to do is go to that particular link and share a little bit about what they've got going on in their life. So I'll see if Tim wants to pop in, if he grabs that, and if he decides to pop in for a minute to share what he's got going on. He's usually doing some amazing things. I know for one thing, he's talking about possibly even having a get-together of folks that have gone through his class. And I, for one, am all about that. I've even said that I'd be interested in it possibly being held here in North Carolina. But then I also heard some people talking about a boat and a party boat, and I would not be opposed to that either. So maybe we'll have folks that will do the party boat and enjoy that as well. So we'll see if Tim saw that and if he wants to join and pop in. We would always love to have Tim pop in and share what he's got going on as well. Because Tim is always an amazing person, always has some amazing conversations, and I'm always glad to have Tim join us whenever he's available to pop in and share what he's got going on. And we'll see if he pops in, if he wants to share a little bit of the things that he's got going on in his life as well. So definitely that is always a fun thing to have happen, is to have Tim pop in and share some of his thoughts and all of that. So we're going to see if Tim is available, if he wants to pop in and definitely share some of the things that he's got going on in his life. Like I said, I know he's got that amazing class, and a lot of folks are very excited about that class as well. So we're going to see if Tim wants to pop in and share about his class, about this whole party of folks that want to get together and possibly even have their get together and all of that. So we've heard some people that are interested in having a get together, and we'll see if Tim is still interested in having that, maybe even in his area of Pennsylvania, or maybe he'll just do it somewhere else also. But we'll see what Tim's got to say about that, and if he's interested in popping in and sharing some of the things that he's got going on as well. It's always fun here on Mullings Music and Memories, sharing great conversations and having people pop in and saying what they want to do and all of that. So definitely we'll see if Tim is available, if he wants to pop in and share what he's got going on with his class, because his class is truly amazing. I was glad to take that class and definitely glad to see what he had to say as a teacher. And actually that's part of what we talked about earlier today, was the need for coaches in all fields. So definitely we'll see if he wants to pop in and share about his coaching skills and all of that. So definitely looking forward to seeing if Tim is available and if he wants to pop in and share a little bit about what he's got going on, about this amazing class that he has offered, and about some of his amazing students. So definitely it would be great to have him come in and share his wisdom and all of that. So definitely we'll see if he's available and see what he's got to say along those lines. So definitely we'll see what is going on in his world as I continue to share more of the news stories that I had heard about as well. I was actually talking about the vaccinations and about the fact that 3 out of 4 of the folks here in North Carolina have actually, maybe it's not 3 out of 4. I got to remember the exact numbers. I may have my numbers wrong and all of that, so I don't want to give you the wrong number, but we'll give you the right number and see what they've got to say. But it sounds like a lot of people had already decided to join in and get the vaccination. So we're glad to hear that folks are doing the correct thing and getting that vaccination and all of that. So I think I said 3 out of 4, and we'll see what the exact number was, because I know it was something a little bit different than that. So we'll be seeing what's going on and all of that. Oh, by the way, I just saw that our police chief is being eyed for a job there in Memphis. So it looks like, even though they've been doing a great job here, in my opinion, it's actually 1 and 4. So I had the number backwards. Instead of 3 and 4, it's 1 and 4. North Carolina adults are now fully vaccinated against COVID. So definitely says over 2 million people in North Carolina as of Monday are now fully vaccinated against SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. That's over a quarter of the adult population in the state, the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services has reported. Those fully vaccinated have received both doses of either the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine and have received the single dose vaccine from Johnson & Johnson. So of the over 1 million people that have been vaccinated, 149,561, roughly 7%, have received the J&J vaccine. Currently, only care workers, long-term care staff and residents, essential workers, and those with certain medical conditions can receive the vaccine in North Carolina. But starting Wednesday, all adults will be eligible for the vaccine. So it sounds like I need to do my thing and get it on sometime, maybe on Wednesday or something like that. North Carolina first started offering vaccines in mid-November, and shortly after that, they started getting vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna. They were authorized for emergency use. DHS reported 6,401 new cases over Easter weekend. The numbers are those reported since Thursday, as the state did not update COVID-19 metrics on Good Friday. So there were no updates on this Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, since daily new cases on Saturday and Sunday and Monday were all below 1,900. That's what I actually should have said. Prior to Saturday, new cases were over 1,900 for 3 straight days. And over the last week, DHS has reported an average of 1,695 cases per day, a decrease from the 1,826 reported Thursday. And I think I've got Tim in the house right now. So we're going to bring Tim up and see what he's got to say as well. How's it going there, Tim?
Hey, Mark, I'm great. How are you?
In the house. So how's everything going, Tim? And what are you up to? And how are things going with the class? Because I know the class is fun. I actually did a pre-interview, and that was part of the show earlier today with your friend Jenny Gold and Lynn, who actually lives in my backyard, because she lives in Morrisville, which is right here in North Carolina. So that was a fascinating conversation. We did an interview over the weekend, but then I used it as part of the programming for today. So I know you've got a lot of things going on. You always do. You and Brian, my good friends, y'all have always got great things happening. So I'm sure folks would love to know what you got going on and whether we're going to have a party on a party boat.
I would love to have a party on a party boat when this whole COVID thing is gone. That would be amazing. But I have to finish getting through that first. The high school that my teacher teaches at, they're actually going remote for this entire week because of more COVID cases. Apparently, the kids are not taking COVID seriously, so the cases just keep going up.
Oh, wow.
Meanwhile, many other places, they keep going down, and kids are all in and all the things. But yeah, so the course has been going great. So thankful for Jenny Gold and so many other people in the program. That it's just an amazing group. We have people, once again, from all over, from the U.S. to Canada to the United Kingdom.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a really great group. This time we're doing the program is called Survive and Rise with Live Video. As a 6-week program. It originally started as a 2-month program back when COVID started, and then it turned into a 1-month program, and now I'm trying it in a 6-month program because the whole goal is for the participants to launch their own show within the weeks of the program. So I'm just trying to find that target date that, or amount of time that really works for everyone.
So we went from 1 month to 2 months to in between, which is 6 weeks.
Yes, exactly. I think 6 weeks is going to be the solution. I hope
6 weeks will be the solution. That sounds great and everything. I see you've got the birds and the deer behind you and everything. They're hanging out in the woods with you. So they're actually partying with you. They've actually joined the party. They're sitting there. I see they're doing their little dance. They're trying to get their groove on as well.
Yeah, they're right behind me. And Mark, you were in my first course back in, actually, I think it was a year ago. I think it was last April, right?
Yeah, I think it was last April. I was in that first course and definitely enjoyed it. Learned a lot of great things. What's the furthest you've had somebody in the course? Because I know you've had somebody, because I've been in touch with them from India, but I can't remember if you had anybody from Australia or New Zealand or any of those places that are further away from us. But so far, what's the furthest that we've had somebody take the course? And are we ready to have somebody from Australia or New Zealand if we haven't had them yet?
We'll take anyone that wants to launch their own live show in 6 weeks to make a massive impact. The farthest, I think, has been South Africa.
Okay.
Yeah.
South Africa, that's a pretty decent distance and everything. So they had to adjust to the time schedule because you're doing the course from the East Coast, and definitely they hold several hours ahead and all of that. So they had to get adjusted and probably wake up. Let's see, if you're doing the course at midday, then they probably had to be taking it at late night or early morning.
Well, I've been doing 2 weekly calls to try to accommodate people in the U.S. and people that are abroad. So it's, which I would probably do 2 calls anyway because of the amount of people in the group, but it just works out better with international audience.
Yeah. Tim, you've now done 3 of these courses. What's the thing that has most surprised you about teaching live streaming, teaching about courses in general, and all of that? Because I know that I've had some interesting experiences. My friend Zach was doing one of his shows. He actually sent a letter to the folks over there at StreamYard because he was actually playing some music that he uploaded, because sometimes you can upload those minute videos as long as they're under 5 minutes and under a certain length and everything, but they were still jumping. So I think that Dana is going to try to look and see what was going on in that regard. But I know other times he's had no problem whatsoever. But I just wondered, as you've taught different people, what have been some of the things that have surprised you and some of the lessons that you're surprised more people don't know about?
Oh, that's a really good question. The lesson more people don't know about. That is a good one. I think a lot of people people aren't really surprised. I mean, not really surprised by it, but a lot of people get hung up on the tech of live video, the whole StreamYard thing, the microphone, the headphones, when to start out, you need a phone, right? To start. If you want to add, graphics like you have and logos, and you want to sound a little better, you want to look a little better, you want to become a live producer like you're doing and I do, then, do that. But really, you just really need a phone to start. And oftentimes the camera on the phone is better than a built-in camera on your computer.
Yep, I agree. The phones, cameras, as well as even the phone audio can be really good and everything. And one of the things that I know that I've had conversations with about people just in general is that a lot of times they get, as you just said, they get too caught up on the technical side of it. And as a friend of mine put it, what people are usually looking for is good content. They can forgive to some degree the bad visuals or some of the visual glitches, as long as they can hear what you're saying and as long as you're giving them good content. That's what it seems to me a lot of people are looking for, whether it's folks that are doing it as a side hobby or if they're doing it as part of their business. Because I know some people tie it into their businesses that they're already running, like maybe a restaurant or maybe an existing audio podcast or health coaching or a number of other things, or whether they're trying to do it on, like you said, the bigger production level. On all of that, even like on the levels of like our good friend Sri and definitely Brian and everything. seems like most people want just good content because they're tired of seeing some of the bad content that's out there, even on the commercial side. So they just want to hear good, engaging content. And I think that sometimes people get too caught up in the technical aspect, not realizing that what people want is engaging conversation.
Oh, totally. Totally. Especially during a pandemic.
Right. Now more than ever, because I've heard a couple of people that actually borrowed your expression. I was actually watching somebody on a couple of other podcasts and a couple of other things, and then they would come out there and they would use that hashtag, and I'm sitting there, every time they say it, I keep thinking to myself, does Tim know that they're using that, and does he have a trademark yet? Because I've heard a couple of folks use it, and they go, I think I've even heard some folks use it in sports competitions, like, we're in the middle of the NCAA basketball, and I've heard a couple of folks use that expression now more than ever. And I'm like, wait a minute, where's Tim?
That's so funny because other people as well, besides you, Mark, that if I go on their shows or something like that, they will say that expression on purpose also because they know I say it all the time. It's hilarious.
It is hilarious. And apparently it's been picked up. So even like some other folks around the country are picking it up as well. As I haven't seen anybody pick it up yet, but I'm waiting for them to do it because I know that Brian and you are really big into what Kim, one of our founders, calls chair dancing or bun dancing, as she likes to call it. But you have also become the master of the hand dance or the finger dance. So I love the way that you do the finger dance, the Tim dance.
The Tim dance.
So when did you come up with the Tim dance, and can anybody do the Tim dance? Because like I said, I've seen a couple of people try the Tim dance, and it definitely, I think it needs to be a trend in the dance world.
Yes. Yeah, I was actually thinking about creating a Tim dance contest.
Okay.
Have people submit their Tim dances and come up with prizes and that kind of thing. But what happened was that Brian originally invited me on the show to be a producer behind the scenes.
Right.
And then somehow I ended up on the screen, and then he added this social dancing thing to the show, and I am not a good dancer at all. So I just started doing this. And then Brian said, it's the Tim. And then I just have done it ever since.
It's the Tim dance. Hey, but that's how new things started, because I had a couple of coaches on the first show, on the radio show with Marc Lee earlier this afternoon. And one of them, we were talking about sports because there were two folks involved in the coaching world. And we were talking about sports that have not had the kind of rise that we would have liked to see happen. And so one person was talking about how they were really into lacrosse. They wish lacrosse would take over more than it actually has in terms of being a national sport. But then the young lady that was on the show was talking about synchronized swimming, which has another name now. But she was also mentioning the fact that apparently in this year's Olympics, breakdancing is going to be a thing. So breakdancing apparently is now an Olympic sport, and it will be used as an Olympic sport. So I'm thinking that maybe this is 2021. So maybe in the 2024 or the 2028 Olympics, we can have Tim dancing as an Olympic sport.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. The Tim dance as an Olympic sport. I like the idea. I'm thinking Tim dancing as an Olympic sport. And then we can also have your other favorite catchphrase, which I just alluded to earlier, which is everybody knows that you're there in Pennsylvania with the bears and the deers and the pheasants and all the other animals that exist there as well. They hang out behind you. I think that, do they come knocking on the door and greeting you and your kids? And do they come out and ask the kids to come play? Because, they probably got kids as well. So I'm expecting that they're going to come knocking on the door and asking your kids to come out and play.
No, they don't. They don't. They actually don't come too close to the house. They like to hang out over by the turkey mound. Get it?
Okay.
Get it?
The turkey mound. Well, see, I have this theory, and you tell me if you buy this theory or not, because my theory is that in the animal kingdom, just like in a lot of other kingdoms that exist out there, maybe even in the plant kingdom, but definitely in the animal kingdom, that they do a lot of the same things that we do. So I'm thinking that there's like an NBA version for turkeys, and I'm thinking that there is probably a streaming Tim. So there's a streaming Tim in the turkey world, and he's probably sitting there right now interviewing the streaming Marc, saying, like, asking the same kind of questions, because in the turkey world, there is probably doing some television programs, some radio programming, some streaming programs, but it's all done in Turkey. So they're speaking in the language of Turkey. So that's what I think is going on. And I think that they probably even have their own version of SnapCam where they are making themselves into humans. We make ourselves into turkeys and hot dogs and things of that nature, and they might be making themselves into humans. But that's what I'm visualizing is going on in Turkey land. So what do you think? Is it a possibility or a plausibility?
Of course. It now more than ever, it's possible. Anything is possible now more than ever.
Anything is possible now more than ever. I was actually just running into, and I'm getting to wrap everything up. I'm glad you were able to pop in as I got ready to wrap everything up. But I was actually ran into a doctor near the near Duke, which is, well, I don't live that far from Duke University. There's a doctor, and I was asking him, because he had on his mask, I had on my mask, and I was asking him, does he think that we will still be wearing these masks a year from now? He was saying that he hopes not, and I agree with him. I hope not as well, but we're already in April, and we've still got 8 more months to go. So I'm not holding my breath that he's right, because I think that we might still be wearing masks. And of course, people are still getting the vaccinations, and some folks are, some folks aren't, but they're trying to put them in more and more arms and all of that. But where are you with this? Do you think that, are you prepared for another year of, I won't say total lockdown, because definitely people are getting out more and more, but are you prepared for another 8 months to a year of this? Or do you think we're finally going to get over the hill and that more and more normality is going to happen? Because I'm actually thinking we're going to be in this hybrid existence for another year or two. But I was wondering your thoughts.
I'm really hoping that schools are going to be more back to normal.
Yeah.
Right now we have the kiddos on remote learning on Zoom, and while it's nice in a way in that you have somewhat more flexibility, and you don't have to drive the kids to school or get them on the bus, or you don't have to, you can basically roll out of bed and get them on the computer.
Right.
Although we don't do that, like to get up a few hours before. But I'm hoping because before all this, I used to love going to in-person events and conferences and workshops. And I mean, I saw Brian at Social Media Marketing World in San Diego right before, I mean, it was the beginning of March.
Wow.
Right before it shut down. I remember I was not feeling well when I was on the plane, and like that whole week I just was, I don't know what it was exactly, hopefully not COVID. But I wasn't feeling well. But yeah, I saw Brian for the first and only time in person there then. And I'm even plotting after this whole COVID thing is over to hold a in-person live streaming conference with a Survive with Live video meetup as part of the conference. So I'm hoping I'm able to do that. Now that I said it out loud, now I have to do it, right?
You have to do it because you just put it out there along with the party boat. So you have to figure out where this whole party is going to be, whether it's going to be in North Carolina. I heard somebody mention a part of Pennsylvania that I did not know anything about, but they said that it's got a great conference center and that we should look there as well. And I've heard all kinds of great ideas mentioned, including folks telling us to come to their country. Because I've heard a couple of people saying, oh, don't do it in the United States. Come over to where we're at. And I'm sitting there going like, we can barely get to another state, much less to another part of the world. But I do know that folks that are taking your class have been trying to invite us to their part of the globe as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's great. I mean, I'm honored that people have been in the class from all over the world. It's amazing. And I mean, the event will most likely be in the United States. And I don't know if people will be able to come from their countries or if they're not nearby in the United States, but hopefully some of them can. And I'm just hoping we can have a lot of awesome speakers speak about all things live streaming, remote live production, all the different aspects of live streaming for businesses, for brands, for nonprofits, for marketers, but time will tell.
Yep, time will tell. How many folks did you think you've had over altogether in this time frame that you've been doing this course? Because this is now the third class that you've had, or maybe it's the fourth, but I think it's the third. So the fourth. So how many people have you had all together now that you've got this batch of people as well?
It's more than 50.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good amount. So more than 50 have taken this class. And I know that out of that more than 50, there have probably been at least 30 or 40 shows that have come out of this as well. Because I know that Jenny's got her podcast, not podcast. And I know that a couple of other folks have done classes and have done their own podcast as well. I want to say that Julie Weeks, who also worked with Shree, was in your class, and she's doing some work. And a number of other folks are doing their own podcasts or streaming podcasts.
Julia did a show called Navy Yard Neighbor BK, which stands for Brooklyn.
Right.
Stephen Kaplan launched his show during your round, Mark. That's been a social hour. Eric Deemer, who was in the second round of the course, he's a beekeeper. He does awesome live shows. He just started them not too long ago. He's out there with his whole beekeeping suit on and the bees and whatever he does, I don't know, but really engaging live streams using StreamYard. DJ Rodriguez, she has her show. And even somebody in the course the other day told me that they got their first remote live producing gig who was in my course. So I was so happy about that.
Yeah, so folks are definitely using the course and definitely finding amazing things. Like I told you, I've been approached by folks that are doing conferences. So I've done a few conferences, and I know that you do those on a regular basis. I don't do as many as you do, but I've done a couple of them, and I can tell you they are a challenge. So like I said, when you did that Houston thing and when you did the thing with Brian around small businesses, there was more around the California small business community and a couple of the other ones.
Yeah,
I'm sitting there like, well, they are not easy to do, but they are fun to do. But they are definitely a challenge because you got to juggle the speakers as well as the fellow producers and a number of other things to make it run. But it is a true challenge because I have been truly tasked in order to pull these things off the times that I've done them. And I've now done 2 of them because I've done it with my friend Eric Kelly, a couple of his Black Business Expos. And then there was another group that was doing like a whole minority business summit and all of that. So I've done 2 of them total, if you count, but maybe if you count Eric's, because Eric's done 2 total himself and then the other one. So 3 total. And then there's talk of some more as well. But I know they are definitely not easy to do. And I've even also been involved with some film festivals that are using this virtual platform as well to get their films out. So even though they're not using necessarily StreamYard, they might be using Vimeo or a number of other ways to watch the films and also judge the films. But it has definitely made it a different world, this virtual world that we're in the middle of. And I've had the pleasure of being involved in a few of these things, but they are not an easy task. So I'm glad that I had Tim to teach me some of the things that I needed to know in order to pull it off.
Oh, thank you, Mark. And this weekend is actually Veronica Jean's virtual e-commerce summit on the 10th and the 11th that I'm producing. So if anybody wants to sign up, register for that. There's a free option as well as a VIP option. They could go to veronicajeans.com if you're interested in learning anything about e-commerce, which is so important now more than ever.
Now more than ever.
Go to veronicajeans.com. I'm excited to be collaborating with her. I also met her at Social Media Marketing World. I've met so many people through that event.
Wow. And this is your second time producing her as well, right?
Yeah.
And just one other quick question. I'm going to get off the StreamYard and get ready to call it a relaxing evening and all of that. But one of the things I was curious about is your kids, when they go to school, because I know even me, when I'm working one of my other day jobs at Measurement Incorporated, the temptation is sometimes to roll out in like your PJs and all of that, because you don't necessarily have to go to work in traditional clothes. So I was wondering, is that something that you try to get your kids away from? I'm imagining that you and your wife, as well as the kids, are tempted sometimes to just roll out in like the kid clothes and not necessarily the kid school clothes. But I'm just wondering, are you trying to discourage them from that so that they don't try to tell you that that's how they wanted to go to school when school reopens?
They actually have been wearing, I would say, school clothes for the most part because they have gym class. And so they have to stand up. So the teacher would see if they had pajama pants on. I, on the other hand, there's some days that I don't even get dressed, to be honest. And when I do my classes, or I don't think live shows, no, not really during classes, but sometimes when I'm working, I just wear PJs and whatever. It's just I don't want to say a laziness. I call it an effective Corona world, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. Definitely an effective
Can we delete
Corona
that
world.
part?
Yeah, we'll get rid of that. But definitely an effect of the Corona world and all of that. One of the things that I've been doing that my friend Zach does, so I'm going to let you have it, and I've done it with you a couple of times, is whenever I wind down a show, I always let my guest and or guest in the plural tell us something that they would like to say positive to the world. Because, the international broadcast media is a global community. So definitely anything that you would like to share with the world that is of a positive note, now is your opportunity to do that. And then I'll get ready to bring up one of our ads of some of the existing shows that exist here on this platform and all of that. But any words of encouragement or positivity that you would like to share?
Well, I would like to say about positivity that it seems like we're nearing a end of the tunnel at some point in the next, I don't know how long. So that's good. Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of good things that have come out of all of this stuff. All of this horrible stuff going on. There's definitely been good things, like all the amazing people I've met, like you, Mark, and the 50 plus other people that have been in the course. And I've got to spend more time with my family. And I've talked to Brian Schulman many, many days on video messenger, having a lot of fun chatting with him and other people. Stephen Kaplan has become a great friend. I knew him already before the pandemic through Sri, like many of us know each other. And but we've got to know each other a lot better through the pandemic and so many other people. So I think just, it's been a great opportunity to connect with people, even though it's over video, in a deeper way, I think. Right?
I agree with you on that. I've definitely made a lot of great friends through the pandemic, looking to hopefully meet y'all in person and not just on the screen and everything in the not too distant future, but definitely whether it's you, whether it's Brian, whether it's Stefan, whether it's Veronica that you just said, or Nancy, or a number of others, I definitely have met some truly amazing people that I'm glad to now call among my friend circle. So definitely I would agree with you on that it is definitely had us grow our friend circles exponentially because of the fact that we are online and meeting new people through different outlets. Like I said, I've met quite a few folks through the shows that you and Brian do on Wednesday and Saturday, including Reverend Carl and DJ and a number of others. And then I've also met some people on some of the other social platforms that I belong to, like the Daybreaker community, which is a dance community that meets once a month, where they used to do those whole dance parties. And I'm like you, I do not consider myself a great dancer, but on the screen, you can sit there and turn off the screen. So you can either make a fool of yourself if you feel like it, or if you don't feel like it, you can just turn off the screen and watch other people make a fool of themselves. So like I said, and then maybe at some point I'll invest in a disco light, because I am convinced to this day that the disco light can make just about anybody look good, because it kind of alters what you are doing as a dancer. So it gives you that altered strobe effect. So you can be the worst dancer in the world, but the disco light will just about make anybody look amazing, even those that may not lack the greatest rhythm, like apparently me and Tim. So I'm thinking about possibly investing in a disco light and all of that. So I agree with you on that line. And I know that this coming Wednesdays, I'm actually going to bring, that's actually my friend Coco's show that she's got doing on Thursday. So I've been helping her with her show that she does on Thursday afternoon on Facebook Live and a couple of other platforms as well. And Eric actually turned me on to her, but she's doing a show around gospel music. So she does a lot of conversations around gospel music, and that show actually airs on Thursday afternoons. But a lot of people know that on Wednesdays, we've got the online dinner party. So that'll be the next time that I'll be here on the International Broadcast Media, giving folks the online dinner party. So definitely folks can get ready to catch that. And then later on this, well, I'm not sure. It's Easter Monday. So usually on Monday, the Lawyers Den is taking place, because they usually do about 4 days out of the week. And what I learned is they actually alternate. Until I was talking to Nick, I didn't realize that, but they do like 4 days straight. Monday through Thursday. Then they take a week off. Then they do another 4 days straight. So that's the way that they're kind of doing their programming block. So I want to bring up a little bit about the Lawyer's Den and some of the other shows that exist. And I might come in and talk just a little bit about our police chief here in Durham that may be escaping us. And I thought she was doing a great job, but apparently she's one of the finalists for the job there in Memphis. And under the blues lover, I can't argue with her running away to Memphis. But right now, let's check out about the Lawyer's Den. And as I was telling Tim, there's been a lot of innovations going on and a lot of new opportunities and new hope going on as well in the field of affirmative action. So like I said, we definitely had 2 new coaches that are the first time African-American coaches for their respective programs. That being none other than Hubert Davis now being named the coach of UNC and Shaka Smart being named the coach over there at my alma mater, Marquette. And definitely it looks like when you do good things, folks start paying attention to you. So Durham Police Chief Carolyn C.J. Davis is one of 8 candidates being considered for the next director of the Memphis Police Department, according to the City of Memphis website. Davis has been Durham's police chief since June of 2016, when she became the first African-American woman to lead the department. She previously served 19 years with the Atlanta Police Department. In 2019, Davis became the president of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. Durham City Council member Marc Anthony Middleton said Monday he felt saddened by the news of Davis's possible departure. That we haven't had the type of headlines in Durham that have attended other cities around the country is not totally, but is in large part due to her leadership, he said. I think in large part due to her spot-on reading of what's important to Durham and Durham values and translating that into the culture of our police department. In 2020, Davis told members of a Senate committee in Washington, D.C. to reimagine policing by banning chokeholds and creating a national officer misconduct database. She offered recommendations to the Senate Judiciary Committee on behalf of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. Those recommendations included requiring de-escalation training, accrediting police departments, and crediting a national standard for use of force. There are too many agencies in the country that are allowed to pick and choose policies, and I think that's where inconsistencies evolves, said Davis. The culture of policing has to change. So she was saying the culture of policing has to change. Middleton said Davis did a stellar job when she spoke to the Senate last year. It's no secret that other eyes around the country have been following her, and this isn't surprising at all, he said. It's disappointing that she may be leaving, but not surprising at all. She's a star, and stars rise. On the other side of that story, a record number of people were shot in Durham in 2020, a year that saw gun violence spike in many cities across the state and the country, the News and Observer has reported. A total of 318 people were shot in the Bull City last year, compared to 189 people in 2019, according to data from the Durham Police Department. That was almost a 70% increase, and the most people shot in Durham since at least 2016, when the department began compiling the data. Overall, there were 37 homicides in Durham in 2020 compared to 38 in 2019. So definitely looks like, even though we're not even a third of the way through the year of 2020, we're almost already about to surpass the amount of homicides that were done in last year as well. So definitely a lot of things are going on in that regards, and a lot of people are going to be paying attention to what goes on as to whether she gets that job. Of course, she's just one of a few finalists, and it doesn't mean that she'll be leaving us at the immediate time frame or not. I'll actually have to get in touch with my cousin Jonathan, who actually works in the Georgia SBI office, and I think that he even knew CJ when she was down there in that area, and see what his thoughts are about her taking the job in Memphis. But I know that when I told him that she was taking the job here, he definitely thought that she was a good person for the job and that she would do a great job. And it does look like she has been doing some amazing work in the field of policing and all of that. So definitely we'll be paying attention to see whether we are having to go on a hunt for a new police chief, or whether somebody else will get that job in Memphis and she will stay with us for a little bit longer. But, this is all a process. It's all about the interview. It's all about what's going on and all of that. So no immediate actions have been taken, and we don't even know whether she's going to actually get that job or not. But definitely it is interesting that she is a rising star in the police force and in the national police scene. And it does look like she has been looked at by an even bigger city in that of Memphis. And as a blues person, I cannot argue with somebody moving to a blues town. I've actually visited Memphis once to go to an international blues conference and had a great time when I was there. That was several years back. And I know that I am due for another trip back to Memphis, just like I'm due for a trip to Miami as well as New York City and a number of other places. But we need to get this COVID thing under control before I'm even thinking about attempting to make a trip anywhere and all of that. So don't know that I'll be making any trips in the year of 2021, but we'll see how that plays out and whether I'll make any trips or not. But I definitely hope to make some trips in 2022. Come to think of it, 2021 is the year of the National Black Theater Festival. And I'm hoping that is not a virtual festival. I'm hoping that they actually do it in Winston-Salem. And if that's the case, then I'm definitely trying to make it to that festival, as I have ever made it to every one of the festivals that they have had on a biannual basis, if only for maybe a hot second or so. But I don't think that there's been one of those festivals that I've missed. I might not have attended as much as I've done in some of the years past, but I know I've made it to at least one of the parties, one of the events, maybe even a play or two in just about every year that they have held that festival. And I am looking forward to hopefully making a return trip back in the late summer, early fall of this year as well. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to check online and see if they're even planning to have the festival this year, or if they're planning it to be a virtual festival. And maybe on the online dinner party, I will let y'all know what I have learned, or in an upcoming edition of this particular show. Want to thank Tim for joining us on the show. Want to thank Jenny Gold as well as Lynn for also popping in and letting me do that pre-recorded interview with them, and for us just having a great conversation. And I look forward to seeing y'all on Wednesday on the online dinner party. But right now I'm here to get out of here, maybe catch a little bit of the championship basketball game, as well as, of course, possibly get some dinner and things along that line. So on that note, I'm about to be out of here. I might just let y'all have a little clip of baseball, and then we'll get this plane on out of here. But let's just see a little bit of clips of a young child playing baseball, since we are in the middle of a baseball season. Yeah.
Yes, sir.